As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey is an independent product and has a joint sales agreement with Civic Media. Enjoy.
I will be Zool. I'll be when Dana turns into Zool.
Also used a couple balloons in the front.
Balloons filled with air or like pudding?
Balloons filled with Jello. I started thawing and now I'm sloshing. Slush, slush, slush.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time, this is Kristin Brey with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
Hello, Wisconsin! Happy Halloween! If you are on the live stream right now, you are getting to enjoy us fulfilling our promise of being in costume. But if you're only listening to the audio, too bad for you.
You got to take our word for it.
You got to take our word for it. I'm sure we'll post some clips of us because it's too good not to share. But Jane Matnair.
Yeah.
What is your costume?
I am Sexy Celery.
You are. You've fulfilled the prophecy of figuring out how to be Sexy Celery. So for those of you who cannot actually see you, what did you acquire to put this costume together?
Well, I got this really attractive long green wig. And then I found a baseball cap that actually says Lusty Celery on it. I'm not sure why Lusty Celery.
I don't know.
But okay, so I got the Lusty Celery hat, and then I had a pink boa laying around the house, and so who doesn't want that?
What's sexier than a boa?
A boa.
Nothing.
And then finally, I thought for the extra touch, I'm carrying around a Skippy peanut butter extra crunchy because I'm Sexy Celery.
That was a touch. I didn't see that before we went on air. That's pretty good.
Nice
That's
touch.
pretty good. Nice touch.
Thanks.
Nice touch.
Thanks. You are an amazing Zool.
Thank you.
That's all your own hair.
That's all my own hair. It's funny. So Ghostbusters is my husband's all-time, hands down favorite movie. And so a couple of weeks ago, we were deciding what should we be for Halloween. And I was like, oh, well, let's just do this. Because there's a couple costumes that this kind of hair really works for. When my hair was longer, going as Jesse Spano from Saved by the Bell, nailed that one.
Oh, I bet.
with a long, big curly hair.
Sure.
I think next year, Kenny G, if I grow my hair back out, I could probably pull that off and get like a rental or like a blow up saxophone or something.
That would be great.
I guess, or if it's more blonde at that point, I could also be Michael Bolton, but that's kind of a deep cut.
It is because he cut his hair.
He did cut his hair. That's true.
Yeah.
Do you know who either of those people are, Brooklyn? She knows who Kenny G is.
Oh,
okay.
all right.
Get on the mic so we can see. You can talk about. Brooklyn's also in costume. She's not on the camera right now. But what is your costume?
So I couldn't find my Dorothy dress that I really wanted, so I'm a cowgirl.
Yeah.
And I got these
You're very cute.
kids cowgirl boots that I found that fit perfectly, sparkly and all, size 5. And then I have this hat that I already had because I went to State Fair, drank some beer, and bought 3 cowgirl hats.
Does it seem like a good idea at the time?
It
Very
does.
cute. It's a very
and
cute cowboy
now
hat.
it's repurposed. So
So there you go. So yeah, so we
Very
are all
nice.
in costume. It'll be interesting to see if any of our guests. I didn't warn any of our guests that we're going to be in costume. So we have Goth Wisconsinite, whose real name is Taylor Nicole, who's a TikToker in Milwaukee, and she is a self-proclaimed emo alternative kid. She's got bright green hair. So her hair looks like yours, except it's her actual hair. Yes.
It's naturally.
It's
Well,
naturally
not naturally.
green,
But it's
yes.
green.
And so she, her niche on Wisconsin TikTok is she tells a lot of spooky stories about haunted places and crazy stories from throughout Wisconsin. So she's going to join us to talk about that. So I don't know, maybe she'll be in costume. I feel like this is probably her favorite holiday of the year.
That'd be great.
And then Dr. Kristin Lyerly will join us. And then we have Packers pundit playback, even though we have 4 losses in a row with Maggie Loney, which I'm very excited about. And then to end the show, we have after lots of scheduling back and forth, we finally will be joined by Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes at the end of the show today, who I know, I think as of Friday, even as of Saturday morning, I thought that I would be going to the Milwaukee Diaper Mission volunteer thing that they had before the game
That was the plan.
on Saturday. That was the plan. Ended up actually going to the Obama rally.
Cool.
So I got to, that was my first kind of big, this might come as a surprise, but that was my kind of my first big political rally. And so woke up Saturday morning with a missed call from friend of the show, Joe Zepecki. And I called him back and he said, why are you not on the press list for the rally today? And I said, I don't know.
One wonders.
He goes, well, you should be here. And so ended up getting on the press list. And so I got to sit in the press pen and meet up with other civic media folks. So I was out live on air with Earl Ingram and Mike Crute, and Dom was there as well. And so we aired live from the rally and got to meet a lot of the other kind of Milwaukee media folks that I knew from Twitter, but finally met in person for the first time and got to experience my first kind of big rally. And because Crute asked me on air, have you ever been to one like this before? And I said, no. And he said, well, why? And I was like, well, I think it comes back to, I'm usually not big of like a fangirl in those ways.
Right.
I know that they're important and I know that some people like really get like very inspired from going to them, but I'm not a big person like wait in line for things.
I am so with you on that.
I won't wait in line for brunch, like just stuff like that. Like, I don't like the payoff is not necessarily
worth the wait.
Well, it's just not evident to me that the wait is worth what I think the payoff will be. But I will say, I left. Obama is still a very good speaker.
He is.
And it was a long event too, because the program started at 3:30 and we had a prayer from a pastor got up and said a prayer, and then a woman came up and sang the national anthem. And then what was this series of, trying to think of what order everyone went into?
Because there were a lot of speakers
There's
there.
a lot of speakers. And so it was, out of the people who are not candidates, Tammy Baldwin was there, David Crowley, Milwaukee County Executive, Milwaukee Mayor Cavalier Johnson was there. And then all of them, the top of the ticket, statewide race candidates spoke. So Sarah Rodriguez, Josh Call, Governor Tony Evers, Mandela, and then Obama. Obama spoke for a while. Like I think it must have been a 45, almost an hour long speech.
Wow.
And it was funny because I tried to do a TikTok live, but I was trying to tweet live and kind of give some of the video of like clips of as each speech was happening. And then once Obama got up there, I was like, oh, I should just do this like TikTok live. But I only had about 15% of battery left on my phone. So I didn't get to the whole thing before my phone just absolutely died. Cause those are long days.
Yeah.
And,
they are.
And so so we'll see. We'll see if I haven't seen much as far as will this make a difference but certainly the people who showed up for it were fired up. And I think we have there was one part that I looked up from my phone. I was like, oh, he's like yelling right now. And he was really fired up. And so I think we have that. Do we have that clip?
Yes, let's take a listen.
Some of you here are on Social Security. Some of your parents are on Social Security. Some of your grandparents are on Social Security. You know why they have Social Security? Because they worked for it. They worked hard jobs for it. They have chapped hands for it. They had long hours and sore backs and bad knees to get that Social Security. And if Ron Johnson does not understand that, if he understands giving tax breaks for private planes more than he understands making sure that seniors who've worked all their lives are able to retire with dignity and respect, he's not the person who's thinking about you and knows you and sees you, and he should not be your senator from Wisconsin. I mean, the message he's sending is pretty clear. If you're related to him, if you donate to his campaign, you get a deal. If you're not, you're out of luck and you're on your own.
So yeah, so that clip I think was probably one of the more shared clips from the day, as far as people. I think I saw a couple different things like holy poop, and wow, and kind of people sharing that specific kind of minute 90-second clip. And it'll be interesting to see if that's a motivating factor, because so going back to what we have been doing since last Thursday, as far as the PolitiFact fact checking, as far as what political claims have been said and if they're true or not, because clearly what Obama just said, but also Joe Biden back in September was on record saying Ron Johnson wants to put Social Security and Medicare on the chopping block every single year, and PolitiFact rated that mostly true. And what basically it comes down to is it's less that he's just saying we shouldn't give Social Security and Medicare anymore. Ron Johnson's trying to flip it as far as saying, I just think that I'm trying to protect it. I'm trying to make sure that people are, how we spend our money and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, what he is talking about is things moving from discretionary funding into like how federal funding works. So if it falls into two baskets. There's discretionary spending, which is determined annually by Congress and the president through appropriations, and there's mandatory spending, which includes programs governed by permanent law. And right now, Social Security and Medicare fall under mandatory spending. So doesn't get looked at every year.
Right.
And what Ron Johnson is saying that he wants to do is move that into discretionary funding, which would mean it is, I don't know if the chopping block is on every year, but it's, in other words, that item would fall into discretionary spending and get reviewed each year. And if Congress doesn't renew them, they would end. And so items in the mandatory spending bucket automatically proceed as usual unless Congress makes changes. And so, go ahead.
Why is it that programs that majority of Americans have paid into since they started working, why is that considered an entitlement? And yet subsidies to farmers and corporations and bailouts for banks and bailouts for the car industries, that's all fine. But we're the lazy people who expect free candy and handouts, even though we have paid for it.
I don't really know, because he's repeatedly said that he wants to put the program under stricter scrutiny of discretionary spending so that they can remain financially solvent. And so putting them up for an annual review would increase the chances that they'd be cut. And this simply is because like there would be an opportunity to do so every year. And so like, you know how we always end like the fiscal cliff for the spending like and stuff. And every year there's like, oh, the government's going to shut down if they can't. And it's all political footballs of trying to negotiate what each side wants. And so it feels like this would become one of those items. All right, we got to go to break, but we're going to go through some more Ron Johnson fact or fiction when we get back. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts. I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Don't get caught alone.
You've waited 12 years for this, but you just didn't know what the flavor was going to be. Nothing has tasted quite right up until now. Sometimes it tasted dumb, crazy, or even seditious. But now it tastes just right. Introducing Mandela Mash, a legit lager. This beer won't embarrass you in public. It comes in an aluminum can, not a tinfoil hat, and it was made in America, not Russia. With a clean finish, the taste doesn't lie. Mandela Mash, the only sane choice for U.S. Senate. Available only in Wisconsin. Go to MinocquaBrewingCompany.com to find where you can buy this fresh new flavor of American democracy.
From the kennel to the coop, whatever the season, Fleet Farm has everything to keep your animals happy and healthy. From training your pup to sit season, to mastering those retrieval skills season. From clipping your horse for competition season, to keeping the backyard birds well-fed season. And of course, loving your pets like family season. There's a reason people say, if Fleet Farm doesn't have it, you don't need it. Because we have it all. Fleet Farm, built for real life.
The Devil's Advocates.
Aaron Mustovsky, who rioted at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, was dressed as Captain Caveman. QAnon shaman meets Law and Order.
Right. I mean, he pulled it off a whole lot better than Aaron Mustovsky.
Well, let me read a quote from the judge in this case. I hope you'll leave some of this fantasy world behind. Mustovsky was sentenced to 8 months in prison.
Looking at the guy, he might be one who loses his mattress on the first day. Breaking news.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Partly cloudy skies this afternoon, with daytime highs approaching 64. Northwesterly winds around 5 miles an hour. Tonight, lows dip down to about 39. High temperatures reach up to 67. Tomorrow, ample sunshine expected. Temps well above average Wednesday and Thursday, with highs in the upper 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 54 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Muskego to Milwaukee, always streaming at WAU.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. So I feel like I saw a TikTok over the weekend because I'm back making TikToks, and so I'm spending more time on there again.
Gotta check out the competition.
And I saw a video from a young woman who I think recently graduated from University of Wisconsin-Madison, and now I think she said she moved to Texas, so I imagine she's probably living in Austin, maybe Dallas, maybe Houston. She said she referenced that she lives in a big city, so it's one of the big cities in Austin. And she had
The Shaw 101 FM, Brookfield's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Multi-millionaire Senator Ron Johnson won't stop trying to cut our Social Security. But you don't have to take my word for it. He just keeps saying it. Talking about benefit cuts.
Do you need to reduce benefits, maybe on a means-tested basis?
Or forcing seniors to work longer.
But you have to factor that into the programs, probably in terms of raising retirement ages.
And if that wasn't scary enough, now he's saying Social Security shouldn't even be guaranteed. And if politicians in Washington didn't renew it every year, it should end. I guess ending Social Security isn't a big deal if you're as rich as Senator Ron Johnson. But for the rest of us seniors, it's a matter of life and death, literally. Paid for by AFT Solidarity, www.aft.org, and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. AFT Solidarity is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin on Halloween.
There are ghosts in the studio.
There are ghosts in the studio playing things that aren't supposed to be played.
Very odd things.
I'm hearing myself talk, and I was like, that's not me talking right now. That was from last week.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what's going on.
There's some spooky
things
happening. So are we still breaking at the same time?
We'll find out.
We will find out. So welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. We are here on Halloween in costume, dealing with some spooky ghosts, playing with our music and promos. But I am here as there is no Kristin, only Zool, and Sexy Celery on the board, aka Jane Matnair. And we had been talking about some truth or fiction as far as trying to round out the rest of the election cycle, going through some of the claims that have been said or said about our different candidates and what is true and what is not true. And so prior to the break, we talked about Ron Johnson's whether or not it's true that he wants to put Social Security and Medicare on the chopping block every year. And that was rated mostly true, as far as he would like to move those programs to discretionary funding that gets debated each year. And the next one is also a little bit more complicated. And it was actually two different claims that he said on two different occasions, but basically are the same sentiment in that green energy. And so basically saying that the, not that one, hold on. That basically the Democrats' radical green energy policies caused record gas prices. So that was the more recent one. And he previously had said gas prices are high due to Democrats' war on fossil fuels. And both of those were rated mostly false. And so what they both ended up saying was that Since late 2020, gasoline prices have been steadily rising, with the largest peak seen in March of 2022. And so those climbing prices have been closely linked to the coronavirus pandemic, because in the early days, production dipped because no one was driving. But as demand rose, supply wasn't able to keep up, meaning higher prices at the pump. And so although consumers were already facing higher gas prices, the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the resulting sanction forced prices to go even higher. And there's not necessarily, I think why it says mostly false is because there obviously is different policies from the Democrats that are trying to incentivize and curb energy resources away from oil and gas and to more renewable energy sources. But the experts basically,
Hi, Luke.
oh, you're, and so both of those are saying that there is more to the more contributing factors to the high gas prices are the pandemic recovery and the war in Russia than policies that the Democrats are pushing. And then the final one was the fact that this is another Ron Johnson claim. And he said, and he has maintained this multiple times. I remember when he first said this back in March, I think, of 2021, or more recent to when January 6th actually happened, but he is still claiming basically the same thing, even as recently as October 4th, 2022, that, quote, to call what happened on January 6th an armed insurrection, I think is not accurate. And that was rated a pants on fire, totally false. Yes, it was. And so NBC News has reported that within a week after the January 6, 2021 attack, a dozen guns and thousands of rounds of ammunition had been found on people arrested before and after the Capitol riot. Video showed people using stolen police shields, sticks, and crutches, and American flags fashioned into clubs as weapons. In all, more than 900 people have been identified and charged. Some 60 defendants have been charged with conspiracy, and at least 228 defendants have been charged with violence. So this claim was as ridiculous in February, I guess it was February, not March of 2021 when he first said it, and it's even more so now. And so that is a pants on fire lie, as far as him still trying to downplay how serious that day was. And there you go. So, Jane, how's our ghost?
I think it's been tamed.
Okay.
We'll find out.
We'll find out. Does that mean we still have to go to a break right now?
We are going to a break.
All right, we're going to go to a break. And when we come back, some spooky stories from Taylor Nicole, a.k.a. Goth Wisconsinite. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
I know, this is exciting. This is really
Is it fair to ask college applicants about their ethnicity or race? I'm Jackie Quinn with an AP News Minute. Affirmative actions being argued today before the U.S. Supreme Court. Justice Samuel Alito.
Why do you give a student the opportunity to say, this one thing about me, I'm Hispanic, I'm African American. I'm Asian.
North Carolina Solicitor General Ryan Park explains the benefit of seeking that type of information.
Give important information about where that person is coming from and what their experiences have been.
Police in Indiana have arrested a 50-year-old man suspected of killing 2 teenage girls 5 years ago. The former girlfriend of the suspect, accused of bashing Nancy Pelosi's husband in the head, says David DePop is mentally ill. Powerball jackpot tonight.
The $1 billion jackpot is the 5th largest in U.S. history, behind another Powerball prize and 3 Mega Millions jackpots. I'm Julie Walker.
And I'm Jackie Quinn.
We tried Dynavite for gut health and immune support, and after a couple of weeks, our little Gizmo was acting like a puppy again. His coat was shinier, he had a lot less scratching and shedding, and he seemed like his happy old self.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynavite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Get 10% off your next order of Dynavite nutritional supplements for dogs at Dynavite.com. Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynavite.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell with these headlines. Former President Barack Obama is stressing the importance of getting out the vote. He told a Milwaukee rally Saturday that democracy's on the line this election. Republican Tim Michels is campaigning on his plan to abolish the bipartisan Wisconsin Elections Commission and that he's open to decertifying the 2020 election. Obama says Governor Evers is tough and he'll fight to improve the economy and protect democracy. Obama says the choice is between those who'll do and say anything to gain power and those who share their values. Republicans are dismissing Obama's Wisconsin visit, saying the former president isn't the golden ticket Wisconsin Democrats think he is. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey, our guest. I'm so excited about our guest for this half hour. Taylor Nicole, aka Goth Wisconsinite, is a Wisconsin-based content creator looking to teach you all about America's Scary Land. Welcome to the show, Taylor.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. This is like the best way to spend Halloween. This
I know.
is awesome.
I was guessing because as I kicked off the show, I was like, I wonder who among our guests today are going to be also in costume.
Mhm.
And I was like, if anyone is, it's probably going to be Taylor. And
yeah.
you are.
Oh yeah, I had to be. I was talking about this earlier. We had a little fiasco. I had this whole idea to be a Rhinelander hodag and make it like cute and fun, and the makeup turned out so bad that I was like, we're gonna scrap this, and I went with a safe little scarecrow, but I'm stoked on it regardless.
So what was the attempt of the hodag makeup? So this morning, were you in full green?
Yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah. I bought a really ugly like green Halloween dress, right? It was like a little pixie dress, but then I had like green leggings underneath and like a green long sleeve, and then I used face paint, but it was zombie face paint because I liked the more rustic green. But I think because of that, it was like, it wasn't one flat color. It was a bunch of like patchy colors just to make my skin look unhealthy, and it was just it was a mess. This
is not giving the vibe that I needed to.
No, it would have been frightening in a way that wasn't intentional. It was not the move.
Well, you look adorable. You look
Thank
both
you.
scary and adorable, which is exactly
you.
probably the goal
Yeah.
off it on Halloween. And so, all right. So I feel like I've been following you on TikTok since I got on TikTok. Like, when did you start making your spooky videos?
That's an awesome question, and I should have been more well researched on my timeline. I think it was 2020 because I was unemployed from the pandemic. I was bartending at the time.
Okay.
And I knew I was getting the job back. So
Yeah.
it was more about killing time. And I had a couple videos about Quick Trip blow up. And yeah.
Oh, but not spooky stories. about Quick Trip.
No.
Okay.
But then I was like, wow, people really like hearing about Wisconsin. Like this seems to be really relatable for people. So how can I turn this into something I enjoy? And that's when the spooky stories started, because I love spooky Wisconsin stories. And there's so many of them.
So what are some of your favorite? Because I feel like you just most recently you did one like the Summerwind Mansion on the by the UP.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is that story?
Okay, so we're starting off strong with that one. I would say that's probably one of, if not the most like frightening paranormal Wisconsin stories. It's a lot of different like larger productions have covered it before, including a show from TLC called A Haunting. But it is this big mansion up on the border of Wisconsin and the UP that has this super extensive history of people purchasing it, experiencing all these ghost stories. What's fascinating about that story in particular is that one night one of the owners saw a ghost, and the ghost the owner of the building shot at the ghost, and for the longest time you could still see all the bullet marks. Like he thought it was that real, that it was an intruder that he was trying to like take out. Very scary. And then a lot of construction workers would report the dimensions of the room changing, different rooms around the building changing like every day. So it was like a real life monster house. Yeah, it was very scary. They also found at one point when they were doing construction, this family had been living there at the time, renovating the place, and they found a crawl space, and the father sent his daughter into this crawl space, and she came face to face with a body. Yeah. But there's no like, I've had the hardest time finding out what they did after that point.
Like what they did with the body? They're like,
yeah,
we're just gonna leave this here.
Well, because people on TikTok had commented and been like, what did they do with the body? Like, did they ever find out who it was? And I couldn't find any information on that.
What year would that have happened, or was supposedly happened?
I think that would have been around the 70s or 80s, but I might be off.
So
on that
recent
one.
enough that you should have been able to call the cops and be like, we have a dead body in our crawl space. Please come retrieve this.
Like phones were
investigate.
definitely around. Yeah. Very, very weird. A lot of major horror movies have even taken like inspiration from stories from this house. So yeah.
Wow.
It's a
Can
spooky
you
one.
tour it?
No.
Okay.
So it was struck by lightning and burnt down.
Of course it was. Of course.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. So even then it is like private property, and it sounds like they've had to crack down on people intruding, because there was also supposedly a treasure hidden in the walls of the house. So people still think the treasure might be on this property. It's like a really extensive story with a lot of different avenues. But yeah, you should not visit.
Not visit. Where should you visit? What are some of your favorite haunted spots across Wisconsin?
Ones you can visit. I mean, I can't talk enough about Whitewater, Wisconsin. Just
so
the entirety.
I saw your video. So basically Whitewater, I did not know this, but Whitewater is considered basically like the Midwest Salem.
Yeah.
I did not know that. Okay,
Yeah.
so say more about that.
Okay, so Whitewater is considered second Salem, and it also has just a super extensive history all around the town of occult activity. The country's first school of spiritualism actually was created in Whitewater. It was the Morris Pratt Institute of Spiritualism. And that actually still exists today, right outside or right inside of Wauwatosa. So it's still a school where you can study spiritualism and learn about your like psychic abilities and stuff, which is really interesting. But that started in Whitewater. They would regularly hold seances there. Like I said, get in tune with your psychic ability. And then it's said that there were a bunch of different witches studying around the town. There's the story of a lake monster there. There's also a haunted book on the UW Whitewater campus that if you touch, you supposedly like die. What? Or like really bad things happen to you. That one's like the most debunked story. That book is an old Catholic hymnal that's locked away in the library. But the librarians regularly have like touched it and looked at it, and they're fine. So, yeah, there's a lot of stories with whitewater. It's easy to babble about because, like I said, there's so many different avenues. But
okay, so since we both live in Milwaukee, what are some of the Milwaukee spots that you feel like live up to their haunted, like for Pfister?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's got to be the Pfister. I love talking about the Pfister primarily because like there's celebrity tie-ins with it. Like Meg the Stallion made a video about the Pfister, I think like last year or something.
When she was here for Summerfest. Yeah, it was really funny. It was funny, like because she actually looked terrified. They were like the whole premise of they're going ghost hunting, right? So they were actually seeking it out. So who is the ghost supposed to be? Is it just one?
There's a couple. So Charles and Guido Pfister, which was a father-son duo that created the building. They are supposedly there. I think there's spirits supposedly of like workers from the past that unfortunately had like passed away there. And I feel like every ghost story, no matter where you are, has like a tale of a woman in white walking around the building. So I'm sure they have one of those stories as well. But Charles and Guido are the main two.
Charles. That's like we're like, all right, so we're gonna name our first kid Charles, the next one we're gonna name Guido.
Right? Guido is such a fun name. I love it. Also, to be haunted by a ghost named Guido is like, I feel like that adds a little level of comedy that maybe makes it less scary.
Yeah, maybe. So have you, as someone who is, I mean, you were just in Milwaukee's paranormal activity conference. So have you felt the presence of ghosts in since this is obviously a habit, like a hobby slash like interest for you, have you felt ghosts?
Yeah. Okay. So this is my personal ghost story. So I grew up in a house that was built by like my great grandparents. And yeah, so I grew up in this very, very old farmhouse in rural Wisconsin. And of course, with a lot of farmhouses, there was a lot of tragedy that happened on the property. My grandfather, his brother and sister died very, very young. They were, I believe, 9 years old and 11 years old when they had passed away. And they did pass away in that house that I grew up in. And at the time, once again, rural Wisconsin, late 1800s, like you would just host funerals in the house. So the house had hosted multiple funerals. There were all these different tragedies that just come with farming. And the stairs in that house always really scared me. It was a 2-story house. The stairs always really freaked me out. So as a kid, I would like sprint up and down them because I could always feel something behind me. And I just did not like the vibe. And then there was one day in particular that I was sprinting down the stairs like extra fast because I could hear someone behind me. I could feel someone behind me. And I was like in 5th grade at the time. And I had this gut instinct to stop on the last step. And I look over my shoulder and I see the face of this girl smiling at me. And like, yeah, I'm getting chills like talking about it, even though I've told this story so many times. But like, I ran away. I was like, that was odd. I so specifically remember like I was on my way to basketball practice. So I was like, I'll just forget about it there. But then unfortunately that grandfather of mine had passed away about a month or 2 later. And we were cleaning out his belongings. He lived in a house right next door. So there are 2 houses on the property. And so we would go over and clean out his belongings and stuff. We got to see a lot of really old pictures because he passed away. He was born in 1917. That's crazy to me. Very, very old man in the most respectful way. Love you, Grandpa. But he, we were cleaning out all these old pictures and I pull out one of 2 boys and a little girl. And I look at my aunt and I go, who's this little girl? And she goes, that's your grandpa's sister who died when she was a child. And it was the girl that I saw in the house. So then that was the story I always told about my ghost experience. But very recently I got an update. My cousin at a wedding she follows me on TikTok. She follows all my endeavors. And she looked at me and she goes, I heard you experienced some stuff in this house. And her family also grew up in this house at one point. And she was telling me that when she was a kid, under the staircase was our toy closet. It worked as a toy closet for both families. She said one night she woke up in the middle of the night and walked out and saw a little girl in the toy closet. And the little girl asked her to come play. And she was so scared that she slept in the barn on the property that night in like the middle of October. And she told me that, and I got even more pale than I already am, sick to my stomach. I was like, that's too much.
Because that's the thing that I have never had an encounter with a ghost, but there's too many people who have for me not to believe that there's something there.
Yeah, I understand.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so there's just too many similarities of like what people and the people who have had encounters with ghosts, like the description and how similar they are to people in the past. And so I definitely believe in ghosts, but I do also, one of the funniest things I've ever seen was like, you have to believe that ghosts, even if ghosts are real, that they can't hurt you, because you have to imagine the amount of people who would have come back and avenged their death.
Oh yeah.
If they could actually hurt you, would be a lot.
Yeah. No, that checks out. I feel like I would be, if I become a ghost one day, like if that's what happens to us at the end, I would be causing so many shenanigans.
Would you be a friendly ghost, do you think? Or it depends how you go out.
I think I'd be a little stinker. Just causing chaos wherever I could. I think I wouldn't be like a mean one. Even for people I might not have like a strong taste for. Like I think I'd leave them alone. I think I'd just show up around family and just be like, knock something off the wall once in a while, maybe.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Keep them on their toes.
All right, well, when we come back, I want to hear more about the conference and what happens at a paranormal activity conference that you were at. And I think you hosted an after party afterwards.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, so I want to hear about that and any other spooky stories. And then also just, turning, because I feel like similarly, even though we have very different focuses, as another person who started TikTok around the same time, as far as what you've been able to do for like career-wise with that as well. So our guest for this half hour is Taylor Nicole, aka Goth Wisconsinite. Stick with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
So all you folks out there, if you haven't registered to vote, register to vote, get ready to vote. There are so many things on the ballot this November, at our freedom, our liberty, and our way of life. But we'll get to all of that this evening.
The Paul Revere Show with Mark Thompson. Listen Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM.
Being a father is an honor, a challenge, a duty, a celebration, and a testimony. I want to be legendary for you because I found everything to live for.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
You love your kids enough to take them to see their favorite band. Love them enough to make sure they're buckled up in the back seat. Show them you love them. Keep them safe. Visit nhtsa.gov/the-right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Plenty of people start something great in their 40s and 50s. Getting your retirement savings on track is no different. Go to aceyourretirement.org and in 3 minutes you'll get personalized tips to help boost your retirement savings. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. A mix of clouds and sun this afternoon with highs around 64. Northwest winds around 5 miles an hour. Tonight, lows around 39. Bright sunshine expected again tomorrow. Highs level off around 67. Dry with temperatures well above average Wednesday and Thursday, and highs in the upper 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 54 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Waukesha's only news talk station.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. It is Halloween, and so I'm so happy that our guest, Taylor Nicole, aka Goth Wisconsinite, who is a Wisconsin-based content creator looking to teach everyone about America's scary land, is here. And so I guess, actually, first, before we get into the paranormal conference, what's your favorite scary movie?
Okay.
Yeah.
Honestly, I love Scream. It's so good.
We just watched on Friday night, we went and saw Scream 5. I was pretty impressed.
I've seen Scream 1 and Scream 2. And it was actually recent, like within the last year or two, that I finally watched it. I have a hard time with scary movies because I have like really high anxiety. This is also why I don't do a lot of paranormal investigations, because they scare me a little too much. But Scream, I feel like, is a great happy medium where like you get the horror elements, but it's just so kitschy and fun.
Yeah.
As far as really spooky movies, really like Sinister, and then The Strangers. That will traumatize you because it's so. Have you seen it?
I've seen it. No. I don't even know who's in it.
I don't know if
it's not
anyone
even
notable is in it.
Okay.
But it is a super iconic scary movie because it's supposedly based off true events, which I feel like was kind of exaggerated. But it's essentially just like a home invasion movie, but like at a very high level. But at the end, you're like, this literally could just happen to anyone. So it's very, very scary. I've seen it maybe twice, and that's enough. Like, that's all I need, because it'll scare the pants off of you.
Yeah, I saw Scream for the first time when I was 9 or 10, and I don't think I slept alone for the rest of the summer.
Fair.
Like, it scared me a lot. And even watching it this as a full-grown adult, watching the newest one on Friday night, there were certainly parts that I was like, I'm just going to check out my phone while during this part where I know at some point someone's going to jump out from somewhere in that stupid ghost face costume.
Mm-hmm.
But the funniest thing about the ghost face, so my dad is 6'8".
Oh, wow.
And my mom is like a theme queen. And so Halloween and like the decorations at our house are always insane as far as what she does with like a graveyard and stuff. But if you can imagine just little kids walking up to our house, my mom usually dresses as a witch. And then my 6'8" father is an all black and has the ghost face mask on. It's like, that's
so scary.
Terrifying.
Ghostface, like I said, the movie is kitschy and fun, and that's what I like. But like the imagery of Ghostface is
one of the
scary.
scariest masks. We talked about this last week. I was like, what do you think the scariest mask is? And I think we kind of agreed that Ghostface is up there.
Yeah, it's funny too because it's a comical mask, but it's still just it's so distorted and eerie.
I know. Mm-hmm. All right. So what happens at a paranormal conference?
Yeah. Okay. So I was lucky enough to be a guest at my first ever paranormal conference this year. So I was a vendor all day, and then I got to speak as well.
Ooh.
I was very, very nervous because usually on TikTok, I get 3 minutes to tell a ghost story. And now suddenly I'm granted like 40 minutes to give a presentation. So that's exactly what the conference is there's all these spooky vendors that have different like kitschy paranormal themed stuff. There's a lot of authors there.
Okay.
And a lot of these people have made a career out of like presenting paranormal findings or findings on cryptozoology, like cryptids, which would be like Bigfoot, Yeti, the Rhinelander Hodag, Beast of Brey Road.
Okay.
So there's a lot of cryptozoologists, a lot of ghost investigators. Honestly, what I do seems to kind of be an oddity almost, like just telling the ghost stories without actually doing any investigation. So that's
interesting.
kind of
Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of neat to learn about. But I gave a presentation on a haunted hotel from my hometown, which is Kewaunee, Wisconsin. And there were a bunch of other presentations on, once again, cryptozoology, paranormal stuff, probably ufology, which is UFO and aliens.
Okay.
It's just a whole bunch of that, a bunch of weirdos all gathered together to talk about spooky stuff. It was
fun?
Very fun. Yeah, I had a great time.
And then you had a party afterwards?
I did.
Was it just a bunch of weirdos?
Pretty much. Yeah. The whole vibe of the night was really interesting. So it was at X-Ray Arcade in Cudahy where I actually helped them with social media too.
Okay.
So it was a cool collaborative experience, like getting to host an event where I work. But it was the paranormal party the paranormal conference after party. The whole title was a mouthful. But I had a friend of mine that goes by Sky Mall, DJing a bunch of like emo music, and we had like Scooby-Doo in black and white just playing in the background, and then all these people from the paranormal conference just came and hang out. It was really fun.
That's so
cool.
fun.
Mhm.
So how did you get into all of this? Has it always been an interest of yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Ever since the girl on the stairs?
Yeah, beyond that,
Oh, really?
even. Yeah, truly. So my mom is super into paranormal stuff. She loves paranormal stories, and then like she used to read like Stephen King books all the
Okay.
time. So she's just really into horror and everything, even though she's a total scaredy cat like I am too. But I grew up watching all these like true crime documentaries and like reading all these paranormal books and stuff. So she got me into all the spooky stuff. She loves that I give her credit for it too. I don't think she really believes it, but it's like, yeah, she molded my mind at a young age. And she got me a book that was written by Chad Lewis and Terry Fisk, who are two very prominent paranormal investigators. And it's about haunted Wisconsin locations. It's called like the Haunted Wisconsin Road Guide. She bought that for me when I was really young because my dad used to sell property up north. And we'd be traveling around all weekend just driving. So I got to like follow along in this book and learn about scary destinations for whatever towns we were going to. And that's what kickstarted it. Then fast forward to a couple years ago, 2020, during the pandemic, I was a bartender. So I was unemployed and I started making TikToks just for the fun of it. Like, obviously there was no idea of like, this is going to be a big thing.
Yeah.
It's just to kill time. And I made a couple videos about Quick Trip and they like really blew up. Like people were like, no way, you're from Wisconsin? Like I never see like punk people from Wisconsin and stuff. And I was like, wow, I feel like I started something here. How can I make it more my own? And I was like, Wisconsin has so many ghost stories.
Mhm.
Let's tell people about them. And it definitely stuck. I mean, here we are today.
I know. And now we only have like a minute left. And so if you are interested in Taylor's videos, you should absolutely follow her. So where are you posting all of your stuff these days?
Yeah. So I TikTok, TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook. I am Gothsconsin. And then on my Instagram, I post all my updates, some videos if they're short enough and stuff. My Instagram is Corn Salsa. Corn is spelled with a K, like the band. And you can find my stuff primarily on Instagram and TikTok.
So fun.
Yeah.
And so it went by way too quickly. We probably could have told so many more stories,
I
but
know.
we're going to go to a break so she and I can make a TikTok together really quickly. And then when we come back from commercial, Dr. Kristin Lyerly will be here to tell a different kind of scary story, more to do with women's health. All right. This is As Goes Wisconsin. Stay with us.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidacy. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at P4PPC.org.
It's the Mad City Bridal Expo Sunday, November 20th at the Doubletree Hotel on East Washington in Madison. Imagine planning your wedding in just one day. Pre-register for free tickets at madcitybridalexpo.com and receive a $200 gift card. Tickets also available at the door for just $10. Read all the details at madcitybridalexpo.com. Like them on Facebook. It's the Mad City Bridal Expo Sunday, November 20th at the Doubletree in Madison. Your ring is just the beginning.
AP News, I'm Jackie Quinn. As the U.S. Supreme Court hears arguments for and against affirmative action in higher education, Justice Elena Kagan says it's important to promote diversity.
These are the pipelines to leadership in our society. It might be military leadership. It might be business leadership. It might be leadership in the law.
But Justice Amy Coney Barrett wonders,
when does it end? When is your sunset?
This hearing combines challenges to affirmative action against Harvard and the University of North Carolina. In Michigan, a Grand Rapids police officer who shot and killed a motorist after they scuffled over his taser gun is going to go on trial for murder. The judge issued the decision this morning against Officer Christopher Schur.
It is the court's legal obligation to bind defendant over to the 17th Circuit Court to stand trial.
24-year-old Patrick Lioya was a refugee from the Republic of Congo. Testimony opens today in the trial against Donald Trump's company, the Trump Organization. The key witness will be the former president's former CFO. In Ukraine, the president is decrying Russian airstrikes that devastated key cities, including the capital, Kyiv. The Russian strikes follow its claim Ukraine attacked the Black Sea Fleet off Crimea. Trick or treat, lots of candy being handed out today, but what happens with all those wrappers? Our Rita Foley reports.
Mars, they make Snickers and M&Ms, is sending thousands of free bags to consumers so they can collect the wrappers and mail them to a specialty recycler. They're a challenge for recycling companies, in part because they have to be cleaned and they're small and flimsy.
World Series Game 3 tonight, tied at 1 apiece with Houston visiting the Phillies. This is AP News.
We tried Dynavite for gut health and immune support, and after a couple of weeks, our little Gizmo was acting like a puppy again. His coat was shinier, he had a lot less scratching and shedding, and he seemed like his happy old self.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynavite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Get 10% off your next order of Dynavite nutritional supplements for dogs at Dynavite.com. Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynavite.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
Your rights are on the ballot November.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm Zool. There is no Kristin, only Zool.
Oh.
From Ghostbusters?
I know.
Oh, okay. Well, some people didn't. People were like, I don't like. We got here this morning, and some of the guys were like, I don't know what that is. I was like, well, did you not see Ghostbusters?
I am a Kakana ghost.
Ooh.
That's my high school. That's my mascot.
You guys were the ghosts?
Hell yeah, we were. The Galloping Ghosts. We were named after Red Grange.
Oh, yeah. I think I did know that. All right.
Yeah, we had a ghost that rode out into the football field on a horse and handed off the football. But now in retrospect, that all doesn't seem like such a great idea.
Well, I'll ask you that in air, but as your costume, so you can tell that story. We just had my guest who was just here she's like a TikToker who does spooky Wisconsin stories, and so I feel like that's on theme. And then we'll just kind of like update with because I realized you haven't been on since July.
I know.
So it's been with 4 months since Dobbs came out. What's changed?
Yeah.
And we'll just kind of go through, and I'm sure between Jane and I we'll have lots of questions. But as the myths you laid out, also we'll go through those, because I think one big thing to get your input on is in both debates, when the claim from either Ron Johnson or Tim Michaels is like they want abortion up until birth. And the decision, the political decision for both parties, both Mandela and Tony, to not refute that versus just, all right, you know where I'm going with this. So
I know exactly where you're going.
We'll have
I
plenty
love
to talk
talking
about.
this.
Yes. All right. Great.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell with these headlines. Former President Barack Obama is stressing the importance of getting out the vote. He told a Milwaukee rally Saturday that democracy's on the line this election. Republican Tim Michaels is campaigning on his plan to abolish the bipartisan Wisconsin Elections Commission and that he's open to decertifying the 2020 election. Obama says Governor Evers is tough and he'll fight to improve the economy and protect democracy. Obama says the choice is between those who'll do and say anything to gain power and those who share their values. Republicans are dismissing Obama's Wisconsin visit, saying the former president isn't the golden ticket Wisconsin Democrats think he is. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey is an independent product and has a joint sales agreement with Civic Media. Enjoy.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey, the Halloween edition. So we were just hearing some spooky haunted stories from Taylor Nicole, and now we're going to move into some more real scary stories as far as what we're facing, specifically as women in the state of Wisconsin. And so here to join us to tell those spooky stories, scary stories, frightening stories is Dr. Kristin Lyerly, who's a board-certified OBGYN in Green Bay and is also, I think you were not there at the event last Tuesday when I was up in your neck of the woods in Green Bay, but one of the panelists, their costume was you as a convict.
I know.
as someone who was charged with providing health care. And so she was in a big orange jumpsuit. And I was like, oh, that's pretty good. So you're not arrested. You haven't been arrested yet.
Not yet. And I posted that picture on Facebook this morning. And actually, Regular Joe, the conservative talk show host, just responded. So we're having a little bit of a fight on Facebook because he said that I said that it is possible that we could go to jail for managing miscarriages and treating complicated pregnancies. And all of these things are true because there's a lot of gray area, a lot of misinformation, a lot of confusion, and he's refuting that. So I asked him to tell me a little bit more about abortion up until the time of birth. And I know we're going to get into that today.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I guess, so the last time you were on was in July, and that was a couple weeks after the Dobbs case came down, Roe was overturned. And I think the short version of what's been happening in Wisconsin is we reverted back to this 1849 criminal ban, abortion ban. Tony Evers and Josh Call have filed this lawsuit as far as not being able to, that law being so outdated that it shouldn't still be in place. But what else has kind of been going on now that we're approaching 4 months since this has been our reality?
Hey, kind of nothing. So with the lawsuit, they've had to change their defendants because, well, for some other reasons. But so the lawsuit is still in process. And it's not only that the law is old, but it's also that subsequent laws have been passed that have really shaped our abortion law here in Wisconsin. So this law, we truly don't think that it can be enforced. But while it's out there, the penalties are so harsh that we can't ignore it. So we've got to just act like it's there. And that makes it really complicated for us to take care of our patients because abortion is not this binary thing that politicians want us to think, like you're either for or against. Abortion is part of the spectrum of pregnancy care, from infertility treatment to miscarriage management to handling complicated pregnancies. This is healthcare, not a political issue.
And so because I feel like there's been both stories out of Wisconsin and in other states where there's a ban. As far as this gray area when there's a complication in a pregnancy, and we've heard story after story of women getting their water breaking early and being vulnerable for sepsis. I think the story in Wisconsin was a woman who was bleeding for like 10 days before she could actually get care. I've heard different stories as far as, you needing to, when you already know that your baby's it's not a viable pregnancy, and having to fly out of state in order to get care. And so beyond some of the horrific stories that we're hearing, has there been providers that have faced legal challenges or been arrested or anything like that, as far as what could happen once there is some more clarity on what this ban could mean for providers?
We haven't seen it yet, but
Okay.
we've definitely seen threats. I mean, just last week, Eric Toney, who's the Republican challenger for Attorney General, has said, even though Dane and Milwaukee County have said, their DAs have said that they will be essentially sanctuaries, they will not prosecute. He said, well, maybe we can get some of the DAs from neighboring counties to prosecute. Like, that's not even their jurisdiction. They just want to be punitive. This has everything to do about power and control. It has nothing to do with healthcare and ensuring that we have excellent outcomes for moms and babies. If we wanted excellent outcomes for moms and babies, we would extend postpartum Medicaid so that these women would have health insurance for the full year after they deliver their babies, because that's when over half of moms die related to their pregnancies, leaving their families with young children with no one to take care of them. If we truly cared, that would be a very simple thing that we could do, but we haven't done it. Even though we've been pressing for it and pushing for it, the Republicans won't go for it.
And why? Because I think earlier this month, or maybe it was last month, when there was a report that came out that 80% of maternal mortality is preventable. Of the
85.
80. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Nationwide.
And so why is this, and we know that there's disparate outcomes for Black mothers versus, they have the worst maternal mortality out of any of the races in America. And why is maternal mortality getting worse for women in America?
Oh, it's getting so much worse.
Yeah.
So here in Wisconsin, a Black mom is 5 times more likely to die related to her pregnancy than a white mom. 5 times. That's twice the national average, by the way. In 2018, we lost just under 700 moms in this country related to their pregnancy. The latest stats that came out, I think for 2021, was it's close to 1,200 now. And some of that is related to COVID, because COVID has a profound impact on pregnancy, but the non-COVID related deaths have also been rising. It doesn't make any sense. We have the highest maternal mortality rate in the developed world by far, yet our healthcare is the most expensive by far. We're focusing on the wrong things. And politics in the exam room is one of the most compelling factors here, one of the biggest problems that we're dealing with.
And so how does that play out? So it's when you say politics is causing these rates to go up, can you say more of it? Like, what is the connection?
Well, first of all, people don't have access to healthcare.
Yeah.
That is the biggest thing. Here in Wisconsin, if we had expanded Medicaid 12 years ago when the ACA came in, we would have been able to give people 120,000 more people would have access to healthcare. Think of all the lives we could have saved, but we don't do it because of politics. It is so hard for me as a physician to know that my patient isn't going to be able to come back for her postpartum care that she needs and deserves because she's going to lose her insurance. She's got no ability to come back and get the birth control she needs, the follow-up for her blood pressure issues, the follow-up for her diabetes. She's just out there in the world trying to take care of her family and her newborn. It is, the whole system is stacked against women in particular.
And how, you might not know this, but I'm going to ask anyways, what is the average cost of delivering a baby?
Oh boy, I don't know off the top of my head. But I can tell you that the cost is not as much. We do not get paid enough to cover the cost of delivering a baby.
What does that mean?
Over half of the births here in Wisconsin are covered by Medicaid, and Medicaid reimburses very poorly. So Medicaid is a losing proposition. Births that are associated with Medicaid are a losing proposition for hospitals. And that's been a huge problem in rural Wisconsin, where there's a higher percentage of Medicaid associated births, and they're really struggling in rural hospitals. And there's a lot of fallout related to this and the abortion issue as we're trying to solve this physician shortage problem, specifically in rural Wisconsin. It's all connected.
Yeah, Dr. Lyerly, Kristin has mentioned this before. What are there, 70? How many counties, Kristin, in Wisconsin
24 out of 72 that don't have an OBGYN right now.
Uh-huh.
It's crazy.
Yeah. We've lost half of our rural obstetrical units in the last 20 years because of cost. And that means that people have to drive over an hour to be able to deliver their babies. And I can tell you that this is going to get worse because of this criminal abortion ban. If it's deemed to be enforceable, we're going to have a hard time training people to stay here in Wisconsin, recruiting people to Wisconsin, and people who are currently practicing in rural areas are ready to go. I have friends who are in an area where they love practicing there. They've been there for many years, but they have their resignation letters ready because they recognize that this is a threat that can ruin their lives.
Our guest this half hour, this is so much less fun than talking to Taylor. Our guest this half hour is Dr. Kristin Lyerly, who's a board certified OBGYN in Green Bay. And if we have to, this might bleed over through break, but I at least want to start the conversation because I think one of the things Jane and I have talked about is this claim from Republicans in the election cycle that Governor Tony Evers and Mandela Barnes are so radical because they want abortion up until the time of birth. Mm-hmm. And I think for those of us who know that that is BS, because what is it, less than 2% of all abortions happen in the second or third trimester, and almost always all those cases are cases of health related issues, whether the mother and or the child. But the confusing part is why the messaging from the Democratic campaigns is not to completely refute that, and instead to just continue to hammer on this is between a doctor and a woman and her family. Mm-hmm. And so do you feel like that's a missed opportunity to refute that, or to at least to get clarity on what that claim means?
I do. I think it's a really complicated situation.
Yeah.
Because how do you talk about these? Like you mentioned, these are often desired pregnancies, and these families are traumatized. So why do we have to talk about our trauma just because that's the thing that conservative talk radio is pushing on, that these ugly negative ads are pushing on? We just need to trust people and to know that these stories are out there. I mean, I can tell you the story of, I don't know if you've seen the commercial for Governor Evers with a woman named Anna. She's my colleague. She's an OBGYN doctor. She had an IVF pregnancy, and that fetus ended up contracting a common virus called cytomegalovirus, CMV, and that baby was not going to survive. And the hardest thing she ever did in her life was to have an abortion herself at 25 weeks. She had to go to Colorado in the middle of COVID by herself to have this abortion, and it ruined her life. She had a hard time practicing and taking care of other people. She struggled in her personal life. It's been 2 years since this happened, and only recently has she been able to really freely speak about this. And that's why she's doing this ad for the governor, because she wants to help people understand that these are not people who just wake up one day and say, I know I'm 37 weeks pregnant, but I want an abortion. That simply doesn't happen. I can provide numerous examples, and I would be happy to, but these are desired pregnancies, and these are people who are really hurting and vulnerable. Why do we hurt them more?
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to take a break quickly, but Dr. Kristin Lyerly will still be here when we come back. Stick with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Elector supplier, climate change denier, insurrectionist
I know.
defender,
It's
law
so
pretender,
heavy.
social security destroyer,
I'm
abortion
cheerful.
ban deployer, healthcare repealer, voting rights stealer, blames Black Lives Matter for
All right, where do you want to go from here?
We can talk about the hypocrisy of Ron Johnson, who voted for a personhood bill, but then ended up having IVF kids, and we can tie IVF into it.
Hey,
I did not know that.
His grandkids are IVF kids. He talked about it during the debate.
You had to leave your house to start a business.
I missed
Companies
that
used
part.
to
Okay,
make
yeah,
programs
that would
with
be
fakes and cash to get on
and then we could let's do that, and then
businesses can get online with Facebook business
the
page,
kind of like why
Squarespace,
should people care?
or Google My Business or WordPress. But which tools should you use?
Cool.
Can you afford to go
It's
down
so
the wrong
much.
path?
It's so heavy.
It's so much. It's so heavy.
To build your
Yeah.
website the right way.
And let's end it with but we can do something about it. 1 in 4 women in this country have an abortion in their lifetime. And these people are maybe not speaking up about it because it's hard to talk about. But there's one thing you can do, and it is to vote.
Yes, absolutely. Perfect.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. A mix of clouds and sun this afternoon with highs around 64. Northwest winds around 5 miles an hour. Tonight, lows around 39. Bright sunshine expected again tomorrow. Highs level off around 67. Dry with temperatures well above average Wednesday and Thursday, and highs in the upper 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 55 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Big Bend to Menominee Falls. Always streaming at
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. Our guest this half hour is Dr. Kristin Lyerly, who's a board-certified OBGYN practicing in Green Bay. And so one of the things, when I first tweeted about my feelings when Dobbs came out in June, it's so much more than women who have an unplanned pregnancy and don't want to be pregnant. It is, depending on where this gets taken, of it's IVF, it's miscarriage management, it's so many different things. And one of the things you talked just reminded me that I guess I missed during the debate is that one of Ron Johnson's, some of his grandkids were conceived through IVF.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He said that very clearly. And, when you talk about Ron Johnson, I almost feel like you just don't expect any truth. Like nothing surprises you anymore. So it's almost like not even worth talking about. But I think that this is an important point. Ron Johnson has supported personhood bills in the past. A personhood bill means that an embryo has the same rights as a fully fledged human being. Personhood bills are really hard because they really prevent IVF services in your state, because when you're doing IVF, you're creating embryos, and sometimes those embryos are not functional, so they end up getting destroyed or they get frozen. People have extra embryos that they aren't going to use, and that becomes an ethical issue. So IVF has a lot of stuff, a lot of fertility stuff tied up in it. But Ron Johnson himself, who supported the personhood bill, has grandkids who are IVF grandkids. So he has benefited from something that he voted against. But then again, when it comes to people like Ron Johnson, they always have access to the things that they need, whether it's IVF services or an abortion. It doesn't matter. They can get it.
And I think that's what's the one thing that people don't realize is that if this is actually about, because there's the complications of the morality of abortion. It has so many exceptions of depending on what line you're taking, that there's holes you can punch into most arguments, and which is why ultimately they're going to happen no matter what. They've always happened no matter what. And in countries that there's strict abortion bans, it's still a lot of those countries, obviously they're unofficial counts, but it's countries that have some of the highest abortion rates because they're just dangerous and happening illegally. And so why, when we come back to this issue, and there's a debate of how much of this is going to be a top voting issue come next week when the midterms happen. And so I know why I care, but for someone who doesn't consider this to be in their top 2 or 3 issues, why do you think this is something that everyone should actually care about?
So I'll give you 3 reasons.
Great.
The first is this: 1 in 4 women in this country will have an abortion in her lifetime. So someone and love someone who either has or will need an abortion. The second thing is this: contraception. We know that contraception is at risk here. And this is not, I am not, getting hyperbolic with this. Clarence Thomas clearly said contraception is in danger. And we've seen instances where people have been told to remove their IUDs because they're related to abortion. We've seen instances in Idaho where the University of Idaho is refusing to provide contraception to their students because of some gray legal issues. So this is already happening. Greater than 99% of people who are sexually active in this country have used contraception. This affects nearly all of us. But the one thing that will affect all of us, and I alluded to this earlier, is the physician shortage. We had a physician shortage prior to COVID, and it has gotten worse as people have retired, especially in rural Wisconsin, rural United States. As we have a hard time recruiting people to the state, it's not going to be Madison and Milwaukee that are going to have a hard time. It's going to be Hudson and Toma and all of these places where a lot of the obstetrics are not done by OBGYN docs, which is going to be hard also, like not having enough OBGYNs, but we're not going to have the family medicine docs that we need in these rural areas. And what do family medicine docs do? Everything. They take care of elderly people and little kids, and they take care of everyone. They are the anchors. So if we can't get doctors to come to Wisconsin, it's rural Wisconsin that's going to suffer more than anybody.
And Dr. Liley, why would a young woman or a young family want to move here knowing that if there's a complication with her pregnancy, she might not be able to get the help that she needs?
You're absolutely right. I mean, you have to think about this as a personal issue. And I think until it becomes really real to you, it doesn't feel like it matters. But I got to tell you, there are a lot of people who are really feeling like it's very real right now.
And so I guess with the final notes, final messaging until we have to let you go. But as far is all we can do is vote? Is like, what can we do? Right. And like, what are you doing to stay hopeful as far as this not looking as dire and bleak as it sometimes feels?
This has been so heavy. I mean, we are not heavy people. We are cheerful.
No, we're not heavy people.
We are fun.
We didn't even make a joke about how we spell our name the right way. Like,
no, we just jumped right into it. What I've been doing is having conversations. And I find that when you start with shared values, you have to get away from this polarization, whether we're talking about abortion or gun safety or policing, whatever it is, you have to get away from the polarization and find out, what do people really care about? And then you can start having these conversations and help people understand that it's not this ugly messaging. People can say whatever they want on these political ads. They can lie up and down. There are no consequences. So we've got to come back to having these conversations with each other, creating community, teaching each other, supporting each other, loving each other, and going to the polls to vote so we can turn things around.
All right, well, we got 7 days. I don't know, depends on how you count, but 7 days until the election. Dr. Kristin Lyerly, thank you so much for joining us. We'll have you back soon. Keep up the good fight, and thank you for all that you do.
Right back at you, sisters. So happy to be here. Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll take another break right now, and then when we come back, we'll talk about affirmative action. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
WAUK 540 AM.
It's going to be a lovely Halloween.
Talk Radio.
Thank you, ladies.
Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Multi-millionaire Senator Ron Johnson won't stop trying to cut our Social Security. But you don't have to take my word for it. He just keeps saying it. Talking about benefit cuts.
Do you need to reduce benefits, maybe on a means-tested basis?
Or forcing seniors to work longer.
But you have to factor that in the programs, probably in terms of raising retirement ages.
And if that wasn't scary enough, now he's saying Social Security shouldn't even be guaranteed. And if politicians in Washington didn't renew it every year, it should end. I guess ending Social Security isn't a big deal if you're as rich as Senator Ron Johnson. But for the rest of us seniors, it's a matter of life and death, literally. Paid for by AFT Solidarity, www.aft.org, and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. AFT Solidarity is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Is it fair to ask college applicants about being a black motorist in Michigan? I'm Jackie Quinn with an AP News Minute. Probable cause found today in a Michigan courtroom to try former Grand Rapids officer Christopher Schur. He fatally shot motorist Patrick Lioya, a Congolese refugee, after the two got into a fight over Officer Schur's taser. Judge Nicholas Ayub.
A reasonable juror could find a lack of necessity for deadly force.
The nation's highest court is hearing arguments over the need for affirmative action programs for colleges and universities. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson questions a plaintiff from the University of North Carolina.
University is not requiring anybody to give their race at the beginning. When you give your race, you're not getting any special points.
A nursing student at the University of Kentucky is among the victims of the Halloween festival surge in South Korea. Ann Geiske was studying abroad this semester. I'm Jackie.
We tried Dynovite for gut health and immune support, and after a couple of weeks, our little Gizmo was acting like a puppy again. His coat was shinier, he had a lot less scratching and shedding, and he seemed like his happy old self.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Get 10% off your next order of Dynovite nutritional supplements for dogs at Dynovite.com. Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell with these headlines. Former President Barack Obama is stressing the importance of getting out the vote. He told a Milwaukee rally Saturday that democracy's on the line this election. Republican Tim Michels is campaigning on his plan to abolish the bipartisan Wisconsin Elections Commission and that he's open to decertifying the 2020 election. Obama says Governor Evers is tough and he'll fight to improve the economy and protect democracy. Obama says the choice is between those who'll do and say anything to gain power and those who share their values. Republicans are dismissing Obama's Wisconsin visit, saying the former president isn't the golden ticket Wisconsin Democrats think he is. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
You look perplexed.
I'm trying to figure out what song this is. Welcome back to Ask Us Wisconsin. This is Kristin Brey.
Demi Moore.
Oh, from Ghost? Oh, we just need the pottery wheel.
Exactly. We'll recreate that later.
That wasn't, was that, do you think of that as a Halloween movie?
But Ghost is in the, I mean, it's called Ghost.
Yes.
You can't
Yes.
It wasn't scary.
I guess there's moments that are scary, like when the little underlord demons, the black shadows, come and steal steal people when they die, the bad people when they die. That part, I remember watching that as a kid and feeling like that was a little scary.
Creeped out.
But certainly not the genre. It's not a scary genre.
It's a love story.
It is a love story. Yeah. I see that you've started to, the wig was too much, was a little hot.
It was giving me a screaming headache.
A little too tight.
A screaming headache, yes. Plus,
well, the ghost in the machines aren't helping you today either.
There's that too. and then my boa is molting, and I'm leaving feathers everywhere. So I lost the boa, and yes, by the time we get out of here, I'm just gonna wash my face, and we'll be done.
They'll be done. Yeah. You know, I won't make you get in a costume again until next year.
Probably not.
Do you? Because you said that before. You don't dress up very often.
No, it's been a long time. I used to love it, but yeah, it's been a long time.
I take every opportunity to wear a costume that I can.
Well, and I must say, I am really impressed by your Zool.
Thank you.
I am.
I have the hair for it, as far as her big curly like mop of hair on top of her head. I fancy myself being decent at doing makeup because I was a theater. I was like, makeup is one of the only girly things I'm actually good at. My nails, not really. Dressing myself, not really. But makeup, and but mostly because I think I learned how to do makeup because of doing theater growing up, that I am decent.
See, and you would have thought
to do that.
Because me too, we have very similar backgrounds in that way. You had to put my false eyelashes on when you got in this morning. So I never learned.
Because you just didn't care?
Apparently not. Look at me today. Apparently not.
They look good on you, though.
Well, thank you.
It's amazing what fake eyelashes can do.
Yes, and on camera it doesn't look bad. In life, it looks like I have caterpillars on my eyes.
Yes. So I'm also wearing fake eyelashes today. So it's
fabulous,
fun day.
Very nice.
So this is probably the last serious topic. You know, as I was trying to blend the outline for today's show together, I knew that the segments with Dr. Kristin Lyerly were going to be grim, but
that's the reality of the situation.
That is the reality of the situation. And so and I don't know if I think this is controversial, and I would love to hear from you, the audience, and where you land on the issue of affirmative action, because today the Supreme Court is hearing 2 cases. One is against Harvard, and one is against University of North Carolina that has to do with affirmative action. So 844-967-2789, that's 844-96-PARTY. What do you think schools should look at when they are accepting students? Because I remember at certain schools, sometimes, whether it's athletic prowess for their sports teams and giving not just admission, but because sometimes, like at my university, the rugby team, University of California rugby, is one of the best rugby teams in the country.
Okay.
But it's not a varsity sport in that like there's scholarships awarded in the same way there is for the football team or the basketball team. But there is ability to influence acceptance, right, of certain players who would end up playing on the rugby team but may not have gotten into the school based on their grades alone. Same thing with the crew team. I had a friend who, her freshman year, she was like, there's no way I would have gotten into Berkeley had I not been on the crew team, but she quit and didn't do crew for her last 3 years, but she still got to graduate from UC Berkeley, a school that she wouldn't have gotten into had she not had this athletic, skill. And same thing with, places that have great marching bands that they need their tuba player is graduating. And so there's all these different factors that go into why universities choose how they approach their acceptance criteria. And for decades now, certain schools have used race and different diversity metrics as not, I think they actually quotas were taken to the Supreme Court, and I think those are actually, you can't use quotas, but it's different everywhere. So like 9 states don't have all of their public institutions can't and don't use any criteria having to do with race. But a lot of schools now still have that part of their, I don't know, acceptance guidelines. Yeah. And it's gone to the Supreme Court a handful of times, and it's back in on the docket now. And so, and because of the makeup of the court now, it's likely, the predictions are it's going to come to an end.
Yes.
And so the end of affirmative action on college campuses is probably near. And back in 2003, the Supreme Court said colleges and universities could consider race as a factor when deciding which students to admit for the sake of a diverse student body. So we'll get back to this point in a second, because I think it's interesting that distinction. But now, since there's a much more conservative court, it appears that this could just be changed. And so they're hearing oral arguments today over the admissions processes at Harvard and the University of North Carolina. And both of those schools give extra weight to applicants who come from certain underrepresented groups. And, you know, this is kind of in a series of cases that this Supreme Court is hearing. And even before it was a 6-3 conservative court, that from voting rights to K through 12 education to employment law, that over the last several years, they're consistently been knocking down programs that are trying to correct for the racial inequities that exist in our country. And I read, there was multiple different articles I read of them kind of laying the foundation for what the court's going to hear. And it was interesting because in the case that kind of set all this up, the Bakke University of California Regents versus Bakke, and there's been two arguments as far as why affirmative action should be in place. And so historically, one is that simply that American society has an obligation to correct for past injustices, and that means uplifting racial and other groups that have historically been marginalized. But in that case, that argument was knocked down. But the argument that was held up is the argument that a more diverse student body benefits the entire student body. And that's true. I mean, that's been proven on boards of companies, leadership in companies, in multiple different environments, whether it's diversity of genders, of class, of races, that having a variety of experiences makes a better soup.
Is better. It's better.
Right? It's better.
We learned things.
But it's interesting because the fact that is the argument that held up in the Bakke case, and what largely the arguments for why the schools and the university that still choose to use race as part of their decision criteria is it still centers whiteness. It's still at the benefit of our white students because it's better for them, versus the pure explicit reason of we should be doing things that specifically benefit races that have been targeted and oppressed for most of our country's history. That didn't hold up in court, which I think is an interesting point. And largely, I mean, as we just said, it's probably none of this will hold up in court. But what's interesting is that all the other things, as far as the not just merit-based criteria that is allowed besides race, right? So we were just talking about athletics and artistic ability. But the other thing that I feel like sometimes we forget is the idea of legacy.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was waiting for.
Yes.
Jared Kushner's father gave $2 million to whatever university he went to, and that's how he got accepted.
This is a study by the Chronicle of Higher Education reviewed 30 elite universities' admissions processes, and they found that a legacy connection gave an applicant a 23.3 percentage point advantage over an applicant without connections.
Now, that's not saying that they're buying their way in. This is just my great-great-grandfather went here, and my great-grandfather and my grandfather, and it's just I'm part of the chain of us's who have always gone here.
Yeah, so applicants who were the children of alumni had an average advantage of 45.5 percentage points. And since college student bodies have historically been white, white students have been more likely to benefit from legacy admissions.
That seems to make
And
sense.
I'm not sure this has made it to the Supreme Court. I know that there is a bill in Congress. I don't know if it's gotten a hearing or how far along it is in the process, but there is a bill that's been proposed to outlaw this, because this feels as egregious. If you're talking about that, well, you should only be let in based on merit. What merit is it just because your parents went there or your family gave money to the university? And like, there's an argument to be made that you're bettering the university, but then why can't the argument withstand that if the university is making a claim that they feel like they want a more diverse student body and it's good for the school, in the same way they could also argue that what's good for the school is to have access to funds and donations from wealthy alumni. Like, what? They're both not merit-based necessarily, and this is also, I don't even want to go down that really, because the people who are being let in, it's not that they're not highly qualified students, it's that there's an additional weight for certain universities that comes with wanting a diverse population. And so, like I said, in California, that's actually not considered anymore. Wisconsin, where the acceptance rate is about 60%, the admissions website states that the school's holistic application process is designed to help identify, quote, remarkable students and, quote, diversity in personal background and experience, and does not use formulas or charts. And so I think often, I mean, I would love to hear from someone who's actually worked on the different admissions councils or seats or whatever they're called at each university, because they read every single application. And I would imagine that it's not there. Every person who applies is seen as a whole person versus a quota. And so I don't know. I mean, so it's like, if this is going to end, it's kind of like, is this just, I don't know. How do you feel? I don't even know where I want to take this. I'm frustrated by it.
But I think this goes along with the Roberts Court and what they did with the Voting Rights Act.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 2022 and everything is fixed.
Except
seems to be the attitude from the current conservative makeup on this Supreme Court. That it's too late now, all the bad stuff is over, that bad stuff doesn't happen anymore. Aren't we lucky? Yay, let's move forward. And as you said, that isn't necessarily reality. It would be great if that were true.
Mm-hmm.
It would be great if we had moved past all of our earlier sins.
Well, you just look at the outcomes still. I mean, this is what it was so, as we were just talking with Dr. Lyerly, there's just the inequities in outcomes are still so stark across health outcomes, across education, across wealth outcomes. There are still so many inequities that exist and opportunities and how people are set up to succeed, that tearing this away feels like a grave injustice. And yet another thing that likely it feels like our hands are tied on.
We won't find out now until next year.
Exactly. They're hearing oral arguments today or this week. And like always, we won't actually hear the rulings until next May or June. So we'll take another break. Stay with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Early voting is open now and through November 4th at your city, town, or village hall. Go to myvote.wi.gov for details. Paid for by Blue Sky Waukesha.
And for today's STEM tip, okay, you know recycling is important. No one wants plastic in the ocean. Here's a cool way to repurpose a plastic bottle. Build an awesome terrarium. Cut a large plastic bottle in half and fill the base with sand, pebbles, potting soil, and your favorite plant. I chose an African violet. Put the top of the bottle over your base and place it in the sun. Your plant will grow sealed in its own ecosystem. Fun, right? Learn more at She Can STEM. A message from the Ad Council.
You care for the house, the kids, and our future. A Shiro's day is never done. So let's start saving a little more now. Get free tips to help boost your retirement savings. Visit aceyourretirement.org.
Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
We stand on the shoulders of women who came before us.
Women who fought for their own financial futures.
And now it's our turn.
Join us. Visit WeSaySaveIt.org and take control of your financial future by saving for retirement.
A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Courage. I learned it from my adoptive mom. Hold my hand.
You hold my hand. Learn about adopting a teen from foster care at adoptuskids.org. You can't imagine the reward. Brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. A mix of clouds and sun this afternoon with highs around 64. Northwest winds around 5 miles an hour. Tonight, lows around 39. Bright sunshine expected again tomorrow. Highs level off around 67. Dry with temperatures well above average Wednesday and Thursday, and highs in the upper 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 55 degrees.
The Shaw 101 FM, New Berlin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at W.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin, where the ghosts have taken over.
I may just concede.
I'm just
gonna
surrender.
Turn it over to the ghosts.
Just surrender to them.
It's their day. They can have a day, couple hour show.
Have you ever had a ghost encounter?
I grew up in a funeral home.
So yeah.
No,
you've never felt the presence of.
No. And we lived right upstairs.
Did anyone else in your family?
No.
Okay.
Because trust me, when I got to a certain, when you're really small and you don't realize that what your father does is kind of odd.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes until you get into school and maybe first grade, second grade, when kids are like, no, I don't want to come sleep over at your house. And I'm like, well, why not? Because there are dead people in the basement and they're walking around. And so once I asked my father, I said, some of my friends at school say that there are dead people walking around in our basement. And he grabbed me and put me in his lap and he said, Peanut, I promise you, when I'm done with them, they're really dead.
Oh, God.
Nobody is going anywhere. And I found that comforting.
You're like, all right, they're not walking around. They're still very dead.
Dad's got it taken care of, man. There's no zombies.
When My Girl came out in the 90s, did you feel really seen? Because her dad in that movie
was a mortician. I think I was way too old.
Oh, okay.
I was way too old.
Okay.
I was in my 30s.
No, I know. I feel like even now, I think there's certain things when movies come out, you're like, oh, that was kind of like what my experience was like. Happy there's getting some representation.
Finally, the kids of morticians unite.
And so, did any of your siblings take over the family business?
Both of my brothers apprenticed.
Okay.
And elected not to go into the family business.
All right.
And that was not something that was open to the girls. I have 3 sisters. And that was not a thing at that time.
To go into. Did your mom help?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
My mother was the bookkeeper and the cleaner, and we actually all did that. We all cleaned the chapels. We all set up the chairs. We all helped take the flowers down and distribute them to churches and nursing homes. And so we all played a role in the running of the funeral home.
Okay.
But my mother was critical.
I bet.
She was critical.
I think Brooklyn grabbed the mic, so she might have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Brooke.
I always told my family that if marketing, journalism stuff didn't work out for me, that I was actually going to be a mortician. That's my backup plan.
It's a really important function. It is. It's not like you can just take somebody and drop them off somewhere.
No, that's true.
Well, my friend who does autopsies told me, because I told her, I was like, it makes me nervous, but I would do it. And she's like, the most comforting thing is that they can't complain and they can't talk to you. So
there's the patient that never talks back.
Yeah. She was like, it's way better than dealing with patients that are alive.
Fair. Fair.
And
totally fair.
She tells them her problems and obviously they don't respond. So she's like, it's like therapy every day.
That's so fascinating. Yeah, because the autopsy thing to me feels just cutting people up is a little queasy in my mind.
But you're doing it for science.
Yes, that's
and
true.
and you're doing it to learn things and find out things. And if you can separate yourself from the body, which I'm assuming that medical students have to do,
Yeah.
because they practice on people.
No, I know. Well, I just remember I still have the of the episodes of the Netflix Dahmer series that I still didn't finish, but there's one depiction of when he was in high school, which I think they still do, because I think our freshman biology class, you dissect the fetal pigs.
Yeah.
And I found that it was a weird, gross, but also kind of interesting. They also just remember how much they smelled.
Sure.
And part of the narrative of that story is that he asked to take home another extra pig so he can practice more at home, because
who doesn't want to do that?
Yeah. And so that was enough for me. I think that was this is kind of interesting, but any bigger mammals than this, including humans, I think I'm good.
Yeah, if you're squeamish, and I'm with you, you know how I'm about leakage.
Yes.
So this would not be a good thing for me.
My stepdad, actually, since it's Halloween, I'll share this really quick, told me a story about his really good friend. And I got to ask the friend, and he confirmed this whole thing. He's always seen ghosts, seen dead people. He was going to school to do autopsies, so he was doing his first autopsy. The person that was laying on the table, he saw standing in the corner of the room. And after that, he's like, now he does something else, but
he's like, yeah, I'm good.
He's like, never again.
See, and all I could think of is everybody's a critic. The guy is here now and he's showing up. What, you don't like how I'm doing this? Go away.
See, maybe you do. There is the peanut gallery, even if they are dead. That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Well, I don't even know how we got here.
It's Halloween. We're talking about the ghosts in the studio.
We're talking about the ghosts, yeah, because what I was going to talk about was for people in and around Wausau, there's a town hall meeting tomorrow that's put on by WPR and the La Follette School of Public Policy and Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. This is the fourth town hall that they're doing as far as trying to listen to voters, as far as what they would like to hear from politicians. And so you can still register for that, as far as it's going to be at the UW Center for Civic Engagement on Stewart Avenue in Wausau. It's tomorrow, November 1st from 7 to 8:30 p.m. And if you just Google Wisconsin Main Street Agenda, you can register on the Eventbrite, and we'll link that to today's show as well. But it sounds like some of these have been going really well. I mean, my boss, David Haynes over at Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, has been involved in all of these. And he said it's been really interesting to hear the conversations that are coming out of them, because while everyone who attends, and there's a panel of voters on there, and they don't talk about their specific political affiliation as far as which party they identify with or they typically vote for, and they try to just stick to the actual issues. And he said they've been really successful.
Good.
And I think the biggest thing I think I've learned as I've been talking to candidates who've come in for the show is how much conversation is important, and getting beyond the comment section and replying to people on social media and the ads, and that even no matter what happens at the election next week, and which party, if there's a red wave, if Democrats, surprise people and across the country perform better than expected, the world continues to spin on. And so I think my biggest takeaway is continuing to try to find ways to have these conversations, that instead of just holding up with your side, and actually trying to bridge the gap and talk about the things that affect all of us.
We have to talk to each other. We have to work together. We are all still carbon-based life forms.
We are. That is true.
We share this big blue ball, and it's in all of our best interest to stop yelling at each other and just let's have a chat.
I totally agree. All right. Except with the ghosts. Maybe not chit chat with the ghosts.
Yeah, not so much.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to take a break for the top of the hour news. And when we come back, Packers pundit playback. 4 losses in a row. But we're still moving on. All right. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
This local musical interlude is brought to you by Max Inc. Radio. Kelsey Miles.
Let the music roll. Hit it.
Listen to Max Inc. Radio every Saturday and Sunday, 6 p.m. to midnight. Download the podcast at maxincradio.com. We are local.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266 DR Waukesha. Always streaming on the Civic Media app.
Taub was calling from prison where she's serving time for unrelated felony convictions.
4 workers have been sickened by an apparent release of carbon dioxide at the Los Angeles International Airport at a utility room. 5 years ago, 2 teenage girls were found dead in Delphi, Indiana today. Prosecutors announced the arrest of a 50-year-old drugstore worker, Richard Allen. The Bidens will be hosting trick-or-treating today at the White House. It's the first such event since the pandemic, but the weather could be soggy. This is AP News.
We tried Dynovite for gut health and immune support, and after a couple of weeks, our little Gizmo was acting like a puppy again. His coat was shinier, he had a lot less scratching and shedding, and he seemed like his happy old self.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but...
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. You sound great.
Nice. I'm going to get rid of this background. I didn't realize it was my work background, so...
You can put whatever you want. You want to put a Halloween background? We're in with costumes, so you can do whatever you want. And is it Loney?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, this will be super fun. So when we come back, we'll come back at 106, and we'll have until 118, and we'll talk about the game and just kind of big takeaways, where we go from here, etc., and how we're feeling. And then when we come back from the break, we can talk more about the podcast, how you got into this, how you feel like your podcast reaches a female demographic.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden.
And everything like that.
Remember when the internet was new?
sounds awesome.
Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
Multi-millionaire Senator Ron Johnson won't stop trying to cut our Social Security. But you don't have to take my word for it. He just keeps saying it. Talking about benefit cuts.
Do you need to reduce benefits, maybe on a means-tested basis?
We're forcing seniors to work longer.
But you have to factor that in the programs, probably in terms of raising retirement ages.
And if that wasn't scary enough, now he's saying Social Security shouldn't even be guaranteed. And if politicians in Washington didn't renew it every year, it should end. I guess ending Social Security isn't a big deal if you're as rich as Senator Ron Johnson. But for the rest of us seniors, it's a matter of life and death, literally. Paid for by AFT Solidarity, www.aft.org, and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. AFT Solidarity is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Women get a lot of advice about self-care these days, but one of the most important self-care steps we can take is making sure we're financially secure later in life. For small steps you can take to save for retirement, visit WeSaySaveIt.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell with these headlines. Former President Barack Obama is stressing the importance of getting out the vote. He told a Milwaukee rally Saturday that democracy's on the line this election. Republican Tim Michels is campaigning on his plan to abolish the bipartisan Wisconsin Elections Commission and that he's open to decertifying the 2020 election. Obama says Governor Evers is tough and he'll fight to improve the economy and protect democracy. Obama says the choice is between those who'll do and say anything to gain power and those who share their values. Republicans are dismissing Obama's Wisconsin visit, saying the former president isn't the golden ticket Wisconsin Democrats think he is. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK, 540 AM.
As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey is an independent product and has a joint sales agreement with Civic Media. Enjoy.
It's astounding. Time is fleeting. Madness takes its toll. But listen closely.
Not for very much longer.
I've got to keep control.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. Well, it is that time of week. Again, when I thought we were going to start this segment, I thought it was going to be a lot more fun, but it is time for Packers Pundit Playback, the segment where we invite a Packers pundit to come join us to talk about the game the day before. And unfortunately, we are on week 4 of losing, but that does not mean I'm not any less excited for our guest who's with us today, Maggie Loney, who's co-founder and co-host of the Pack's What She Said podcast, a Packers podcast hosted by Odyssey that aims to highlight female voices when it comes to the football industry. So Maggie, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. If you want to just skip the Packers talk and go back to Rocky Horror, that's
totally fine. It's a little more fun. Yeah.
Fun.
Well, it's also funny because you're the first female pundit that we've gotten on the show so far. And when I reached out to you and you got back to me very quickly about being excited to come on, but also had to have the caveat of I may be giving birth. So as long as you're okay with me canceling last minute, I was like, that is the most, what more female answer could you have as far as, and so congratulations. How are you feeling?
Thank you. I feel good. Yeah, I'm at this point, I joke with my husband that as the games get worse and worse, I'm just ready for the baby to, take me out of my misery. And, I'd rather go to the hospital than watch some of these games. But so far, so good.
Well, so speaking of these games, because I've heard mixed, we watched the game last night with a group of friends and, the second half honestly started to feel like there was some momentum that was started to feel like, all right, I never really thought we were going to come back and win, but for as good as the Bills are, and they are very good. And the fact that we almost got another touch to, had we not run out of time, I was like, maybe if we lost by 3. And so I don't know. It sucks that we've now lost 4 in a row, but do you have any hope coming out of this game that things started to feel like there was some movement, that things are somewhat salvageable for the season?
Yeah, and I think the frustrating part when you watch the game is, they say there's no moral victories, and that's obviously true. You don't get a W for trying your hardest, and but a lot of the things that we saw were progress being made. And I think the frustrating part for a lot of Packer fans is, had the Packers played this kind of game 3 weeks ago against the Giants or against the Jets or against the Commanders, you're probably not on a 4-game losing skid right now. So for them to come out and have the performance they did against arguably the best team in the NFL, there's a lot to build off of, but now you're running the risk of, are you building too little too late when you could have corrected some of these things or tried some of these things weeks ago?
Well, and what were some of the biggest adjustments that you felt like we saw happen last night that worked?
Yeah, so I think, starting, the Packers were just behind the 8 ball with receivers. That was really tough for them to not have Lazard. And then, for Christian Watson, Aaron Rodgers had said post-game that they had like 5 or 6 plays specifically dialed up for Watson. And then when he gets the concussion, it kind of changes the game plan a little bit. So really liked the way they ran the football. That was something that we've been clamoring for weeks. They won the turnover battle finally. They won time of possession. So if you look like on paper, everything we wanted to see them do with these long sustained drives, kind of chunk plays instead of just taking the deep shot, leaning on the run game, everything looked good. It just happened to be against one of the best defenses in the NFL and not, some of the other defenses that they were facing previous weeks.
Yeah. And it just because I feel like, because your podcast is part of the Cheesehead TV empire, right? Or
partially. Yeah.
Partially.
We partner with them. Yeah.
And so, Aaron Nagler, who's been on here before, like he's like all seasons like run the ball. And it felt like we finally were running the ball more yesterday. And there was that great Dobbs 38 yards as far as like that looks great. And that looked like vintage Aaron Rodgers throwing to someone that he trusts. And it was a great play. And so do you feel like that is we're getting closer to the right combination of throwing and running?
I think so, yeah. And I think, for everything that Roger said and the flack he got for the comments about guys stepping up and making plays and the mental errors, I think they showed that on Sunday that was maybe the kick that they needed. Dobbs had one of his best games after, a lackluster couple weeks. Samori Toure got to come out and play and get his first touchdown as a pro. So, I think, what we saw from the rookies is really promising. The surprise to me has been guys like Sammy Watkins, who, have been brought in to be like the vet presence, and they don't get any targets and don't get any looks. They're not really making an impact the way that we thought they might for the offense.
And so that's kind of working. Anything like with our defense as far as, because that kind of feels like we came into this season and there was like, oh, we have this like elite defense that just has not stepped up. And so do you feel like this is kind of, we're going towards Joe Barry not having a job by the end of the season, or where do you feel like we're going with the defense?
See, now that's tough because the Packers historically aren't a team that lets go of coaches midseason, which is why the McCarthy thing was so crazy a couple of years ago. I think we all expected them to just let him finish out the season. So I don't necessarily think anything happens with Joe Barry midseason, but I do think we're seeing more of a Matt LaFleur influence in that side of the room to just say, hey, these are the things I want to do on defense. And some of the questions to me come with the execution of the scheme. Like, Jair being on Gabe Davis the whole game, he shut him down completely. And then Stephon Diggs is running wild over Stokes and Rasul. So that kind of stuff to me is just the head scratcher of, you've invested so much on this side of the ball and there's so much talent there. Why aren't you putting them in the best positions to be successful?
Our guest this half hour for Packers Pundit Playback is Maggie Loney, who's the co-founder and co-host of Pack's What She Said podcast, which is a great name. And so I think one of the more dramatic moments of the evening was when Quay Walker decided to push a coach. Was it a coach?
It ended up being a practice squad tight end, which makes it worse.
Why does that make it worse?
Because, if it's a coach, you're like, okay, they're personnel, they're an executive, they're an official. It's just a practice squad guy in street clothes. Like, he wasn't suited up. It wasn't a player. It wasn't a coach. He was just a dude to me, which made it.
And so I don't know if this has come out. So what was because of what the exchange that before the push, I didn't see. And so was after the game, was there any more insight into what he maybe said to Quay, or?
It sounded like Quay he had made the tackle against somebody that he played in college with. So it was like a John kind of thing. And then he felt a push and didn't know where it came from. And I think he interpreted it as somebody maybe, I don't know if the guy was trying to help him up or what it looked like, but it was just him in the moment getting too worked up.
And it was interesting, because I always go back to this. This was it 2 weeks, 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago that Devontae pushed the camera guy?
That might have been 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago now.
And I'm not excusing it, but there is this expectation of these players who are at the highest peak of their adrenaline and the peak of how intense this game is of tackling or be tackled and just the pumping testosterone that comes with that. And yet, but then it's in the moments but you also have to control your emotions.
Yes, you have to flip it like a switch.
Like a switch. And in the moment of especially defenders and the attack mentality of I am either figuratively or literally going to try to take your head off. And then once the whistle blows, I have to cool off. And they're not always very good at it. I'm not trying to excuse you shouldn't push people. Devontae should not have pushed that cameraman. But it isn't you think about any of us mere mortals and sometimes our inability to even check our emotions when we're driving, let alone instructed and getting paid to try to take someone's head off. And then as fans were like, well, he needs to keep it under control. It's like, well, it kind of is probably a little bit harder than you think to be able to oscillate between those feelings so quickly.
Especially because I think one of the criticisms of this team the last couple of weeks, Robert Saleh said it after the Jets game where this is a Packers team that if you punch him in the mouth, he didn't call them soft, but you could tell what he was implying, that this is a team that, kind of rolls over. So, the Packers, like Aaron Rodgers, some of the guys were talking about how they had a really good week of practice. The energy was better. They felt more like the quote unquote Packers of old where they were, just this is our house. And then you come out there and you finally bring energy and then you get kicked out for bringing too much energy. So I can understand that, that would be a really difficult balance to walk.
Well, especially because it's also just young guys that are like, I don't know. There is this weird balance between get fired up, chirp at each other, get in each other's head. And then sometimes it goes too far because he's not going to get suspended over this, is he?
They made it sound like just a fine, no suspension.
Okay. So that was one point of them. It's like, yeah, you can't push people. But that's all I could think of is in the moment. I've never been in a fight in my life except on the basketball court because you get all fired up and it's all that adrenaline. And so, all right. So then where do we, in your estimation, go from here? Everyone who's come on week after week in this 4-week losing streak has been like, all right, it's still early. It's still early. Is it still early?
See, and this is the tough part because the games that they were supposed to win, they did not win.
Yeah.
So now you're getting into, you would hope that next week they can beat the Lions. It'll end kind of their road stretch that's been really daunting. But they've had some really bad luck of the draw too, as far as they just played a Bills team that had a bye week after beating the Chiefs, which is the team that took them out of the playoffs last year. They had the London game that took a lot out of them. So this is a really drained team. They're getting a ton of injuries. We don't know what's going to happen with Devondre Campbell. So it feels like the odds keep stacking against them. But I guess the one caveat or the saving grace at this point is that the rest of the NFC wildcard picture is just as up in the air. You've got the Bucs, you've got the Rams. So it's unfortunate that the Packers have lost tiebreakers now to the Giants and the Commanders. But at the same time, if they can somehow figure out a way to win 6 games, I think that puts them still possibly in wildcard contention, even though the division at this point feels kind of out of reach.
All right. So it's not all, it's salvageable. And where do you feel like prediction wise, what would need to happen as far as even with the people who are hurt, who do we need to come back and get off of the injured reserve list to actually get those 6 wins, you think?
I think Lazard coming back is big as a security blanket for Rodgers. You would think Cobb, obviously, but we don't know the long term. I don't know how many weeks he's got left with that ankle. He's in a boot right now. But I think, it's just the pieces on offense because I think the defense has what they need at this point. It's just more of an execution from them. And, I think the consistency is the killer here. They consistently play one good half of football, and holding the Bills, in the second half to 3 points was fantastic. And they got 2 turnovers. And, that was the kind of stuff you wanted to see from them. It was just, it's either the defense is getting stops and then the offense can't put up points, or the offense is finally scoring and the defense lets the Bills score 5 consecutive drives. They just have to get some consistency, and then I'll feel better about both sides of the ball.
All right. Well, this is Packers Pundit Playback, and our guest for this half hour is Maggie Loney, who's the co-founder and co-host of Pack's What She Said podcast. We're going to take a break and then talk more about the podcast when we come back. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
to the left. With your hands on your hips.
I'm Kirk Bangstad, and I own the Minocqua Brewing Company in Deep Red, northern Wisconsin, and I have a super PAC. We make good trouble by buying billboards, radio ads, and calls to voters in northern Wisconsin. We target federal and state elections, think Ron Johnson and Tom Tiffany, and concentrate on a fair redistricting process. Give a donation now if you're able at the MinocquaBrewingCompany.com Super PAC tab. Help us make the politics of the Northwoods as clean as our lakes and streams. That's the MinocquaBrewingCompany.com Super PAC tab.
Work, the kids' practices, household errands, seems like every hour's rush hour at our house. But no matter how busy things get, we still make balanced nutrition a priority with help from Country Hearth Natural Breads. Whole grains and other natural ingredients are carefully blended and baked into delicious, nutritious breads like Dakota-style 12-grain, multi-grain, and 100% whole wheat. There's a Country Hearth favorite for everyone in the family. Country Hearth Breads, baking our best for you.
Advocates.
Mitch McConnell did make a public statement, right? After he voted to acquit, nothing says the president can't be prosecuted. Set the example for your caucus.
Convince your caucus as to why the man is not fit to serve. How do you not use your leadership to say, you guys, this is crazy? We can't do this, and here is exactly why. Because now, of the two major political parties, one of them is under the thumb of a fascist insurrectionist.
Follow the Devil's Advocates on Facebook and Twitter.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Cloudy skies with a few peaks of sun this afternoon with highs around 64. Winds out of the northwest around 5 miles an hour. Clear skies tonight. Lows dip down to about 39. Bright sunshine expected again tomorrow. Daytime highs approaching 67. Temps well above average Wednesday and Thursday with highs in the upper 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 59 degrees.
A progressive voice from Beaver Dam to Kenosha. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUK.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. We are on doing Packers Pundit Playback with Maggie Loney, who's the co-founder and co-host of the Pack. Oh, I'm hearing something. Oh, that's why I was listening to your podcast, and so it was my ear just. I was like, "Am I the only one hearing this?" We're having a lot of ghost issues today, as far as our technology is going, and so our guest is Maggie Loney, co-founder and co-host of the Pack's What She Said podcast, which is a Packers podcast hosted by Odyssey that aims to highlight female voices in the industry. And so, how many female voices are there in the industry? Do you feel outnumbered?
Yeah, when I first joined like the Twitter community a long time ago, just as like somebody that really loved football and wanted to keep up with it, and it can be kind of overwhelming when you're thinking about, you like especially when you have like just a couple followers and you're like, wow, that was a great blah blah blah, and then everybody jumps on it and swarms it, and you're like, oh no, this was just me and my little band of 20 people on Twitter that nobody was supposed to see this tweet. So then when you intentionally put yourself out there and start a podcast, it feels kind of like you're taking up the mantle a little bit. And I don't want to say that we're like trying to represent too many voices, but it feels like you have this like responsibility to really be on your dots and cross your T's and know everything there is to know, because you are an underrepresented piece of the industry.
And so how often are you dealing with, speaking of chirping, of men chirping, how often do you and your co-founder, co-host, Perry Goldstein, are you dealing with kind of annoying people who would like to discredit your takes? And how much are you encouraged and feel like supported in your, like, whether it's on Twitter or the podcast?
I will say, like, you learn to develop some thick skin, and there was a time, like, I used to write for Cheesehead TV, and then I took a little maternity leave from doing that because it was a lot. But you learn not to read the comments, so you don't read like the reviews of your podcast. You don't read the comments under articles, and I will say, like, 90% of people, honestly, I think it's that high of a number, are fantastic and very supportive. But the 90% of people that say, "Hey, you're great at this," it doesn't do something to you the way that the one that says, like, "Wow, you're terrible," really just sticks with you. So you eventually learn to stop reading all of it, even though, you miss some really nice comments from people, because it's just not worth it to hear the ones that are going to make you feel bad the rest of the day.
Well, and it's funny because the sports crowd is an opinionated crowd.
Yeah.
Right. And whether it's what I think about like Bucks Twitter or Packers Twitter, or I mean, this is probably the same for every team, but the fights that you could see of people like on social media and how seriously they take the sports. Cause like, it's one thing since I kind of, with my social media presence, is more political, which, I think you can argue that there sometimes feels like there's more stakes of why people, as we're seeing, I mean, there's violence, and like there's a bunch of stuff that is, but people take their sports just as seriously when you get into these different parts of the internet. And so I think almost like everything, we talked about this last week when we had two women who work in venture capital, specifically in health tech, is that almost no matter what industry you're in, there's just, if you're a woman trying to talk about typical male things, just the immediate discredit that they want to not acknowledge your expertise. And so like just talking to you right now, like you clearly know what you're talking about.
Thank you.
And so I appreciate, I mean, it's been really popular though. Like what it seems like, how many years have you guys been doing the podcast?
We started actually like right when the pandemic started. So early 2020.
That's awesome. And so you've seen obviously a lot of growth with it, because as of this year is when you joined the Odyssey family.
Yep. Over the summer. So
and how's that been going?
It's been fun. And, I joke that this came at a good time because now we have a producer. So I don't have to be the producer and I don't have to edit anything anymore. I get to, I guess, hopefully in the next month or two, find a quiet spot to record for 30 minutes. And then just my duties are then back to the baby. So it came at a good time for us.
Yeah, that seems like, having, as someone who has a producer, it makes a big difference.
She's doing I love it.
She does a great job. She does all of our spooky music today. She didn't get to play her sports ball song that she typically plays, but during this segment, as far as sports being so important. And so what else? Where can people find the podcast? And then when is it come on Mondays?
Yeah, so you can find the podcast like anywhere you can find your favorite podcasts. We're on Odyssey. You can even find us on the Cheesehead TV website still, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play. I don't even know all of them anymore. Amazon. But yeah, we do a recap show. Normally it's live on Mondays, but we figured with it being Halloween and trick-or-treating, we're not going to go live today because people have other things to do and they'll get in trouble if they bring us with them trick-or-treating. So the shows normally come out either Monday night or Tuesday mornings. And then Thursday mornings, we have like the preview show. So there's always a preview and a recap. Got it.
And then because as you said, like there's the podcast, it recaps the game, it previews the game, but is there anything specific you and your co-hosts do as far as highlighting female voices in this industry? Or is it just by proxy of being a female that you feel like that is the representation you're trying to give in the slew of Packers podcasts?
Yeah, well, when we started, we were the only podcast about the Packers that was hosted by two women.
Wow.
So that was really cool. It felt like a milestone for us. And we've had the pleasure of having some really fantastic guests come on. Melissa Jacobs, who's from The Football Girl, she founded that website, has come on to talk with us about the 49ers. We had Mina Kimes on, which was like the highlight of our entire podcasting career, ESPN analyst Mina Kimes. So we try really hard to bring on, if we're going to have guests on the show, which can be hard to do when you're trying to coordinate, week to week, but a lot of now locker room media and analysts are women. So we had Brooke Pryor come on last year from the Steelers. And just if there is a female analyst on a team, we typically will try to reach out to them to bring them onto the show, because it's just, it's something that we really like to do. And we like to represent those voices because like you said, they're just as knowledgeable.
Yes, absolutely. And so thank you so much for coming on. This was so fun. I'm so glad we got you before baby arrives. Good luck with everything. Actually, quickly, just because I saw it on Twitter, what was your Halloween costume?
Yeah, I was the Kool-Aid man. So the baby was the Kool-Aid pitcher, and then we made some brick walls out of styrofoam. So looking forward to, I guess, a family costume next year that isn't just me smelling Sharpie fumes.
But yeah, it was very good. So Maggie Loney, thank you so much for being here. Check out her podcast, Pax What She Said podcast, and good luck with everything.
Yeah, thanks so much. Happy Halloween.
All right, this is As Goes Wisconsin. Stick with us.
Thank you both.
WAUK 540 AM, New Berlin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
Early voting is open now and through November 4th at your city, town, or village hall. Go to myvote.wi.gov for details. Paid for by Blue Sky Waukesha.
My husband said to give our house more curb appeal. So I started painting. Then I went on Google and looked up the meaning of curb appeal. It said to make it more nicer. So I called Replacement Window Center, and they put in new replacement windows.
Get free installation and 0% financing for 18 months. Free installation and 0% financing. Hurry, call now.
Replacement Window Center. Our name says it all.
My mother was very familiar with her neighborhood, but one day she stopped at the stop sign and she wasn't even really sure where she was at.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and
in Michigan. I'm Jackie Quinn with an AP News Minute. Probable cause found today in a Michigan courtroom to try for University of North Carolina explains his objection.
References to African Americans, to Hispanic Americans, and to American Indians. It does not give racial preferences to white applicants and to Asian applicants.
A former white policeman in Grand Rapids, Michigan will stand trial for fatally shooting a black motorist in April. A judge determined there was probable cause to put him on trial. Police in Delphi, Indiana, charged a drugstore worker with killing 2 teens. The police superintendent makes the announcement on WRTV.
Arrest of Richard M. Allen of Delphi on 2 counts of murder.
Special Forces soldiers from Afghanistan who fought alongside U.S. troops, they're being recruited by the Russian military to fight in Ukraine. They tell the AP they were offered high pay. I'm Jackie Quinn.
We tried Dynavite for gut health and immune support, and after a couple of weeks, our little Gizmo was acting like a puppy again. His coat was shinier, he had a lot less scratching and shedding, and he seemed like his happy old self.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynavite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Get 10% off your next order of Dynavite nutritional supplements for dogs at Dynavite.com.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynavite.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
For Civic Media News, I'm Terry Bell with these headlines. Former President Barack Obama is stressing the importance of getting out the vote. He told a Milwaukee rally Saturday that democracy's on the line this election. Republican Tim Michels is campaigning on his plan to abolish the bipartisan Wisconsin Elections Commission and that he's open to decertifying the 2020 election. Obama says Governor Evers is tough and he'll fight to improve the economy and protect democracy. Obama says the choice is between those who'll do and say anything to gain power and those who share their values. Republicans are dismissing Obama's Wisconsin visit, saying the former president isn't the golden ticket Wisconsin Democrats think he is. You're listening to The Shaw, 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
It's witchcraft, and I've got no defense for it. The heat is too intense for it. What good would common sense for it do?
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. So I thought we would have a little fun this segment before Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes joins us at the end of today's show.
Yeah, last
so
segment.
Stay tuned for that. But I thought we'd go over some scary beauty trends, because I know we've heard about Jane's
Put it away.
And what I found, this is from Jezebel.com, which is a women's political entertainment health online blog. And they always have pretty funny writers and such. And I found this because, like I said, I think I said at the beginning of the show, I'm good at makeup, and that's about the extent of my fashion trends as far as trying to stay on top of what clothing items, what beauty trends are popular. I'm not necessarily in front of the 8 ball on that one. But Brooke's going to join us for this because, again, I think this is always fun when we get 3 generations' opinions on some of these things. So we're just going to go through some of these, and I'm going to describe them since this is obviously an audio medium, trying to describe what I'm looking at with these fashion trends that are becoming more and more popular. So the first one is bleached eyebrows.
Love. I feel like people look so cool when they do that.
But this is, I don't understand. I feel like we've just gone through this huge, as someone who grew up as a teenager with the very pencil thin eyebrow being the trend, and an entire generation of women over plucking their eyebrows, and they never grew back. And then all of a sudden chunky, thick eyebrows were popular, and now we're just bleaching them.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's so cool. If you can pull that off, you can pull off anything.
See, and
the operative word being if.
There's the rub, Brooklyn. No one can pull that off. No one. Unless you are naturally an albino. I think it is, for women, it's so unattractive. Why would you want to do that? And to Kristin's point, when you start messing with your eyebrows with chemicals like that, trust me, girls, they thin out as you age. And you can't get them back.
So this is also 2015, 2016. I had an esthetician tell me, I had, acne or something like that. And I had an esthetician tell me that using hydrogen peroxide on your face would help dry up and bring things to the surface with the acne. Mm-hmm. So I was using like a little spray bottle, and I kept, not on purpose, bleaching my eyebrows to the point that it took me, I went and got a new picture from the DMV to update my driver's license. And it took me looking at that picture and being like, why do I look so weird? Because I couldn't figure it out. Because it's one of those things that when it happens gradually, that you don't necessarily realize that you're bleaching your eyebrows. And I had to look at it. And one of my friends was like, why are your eyebrows so blonde? And I forgot that hydrogen peroxide is basically bleach when it comes to your hair. And so then I had to go get them professionally dyed so they would be the right color.
Well, they frame your whole face.
I know.
Your eyebrows frame your face. Brooke, imagine your dog without eyebrows.
I think like when girls do this, especially like there are quite a few celebrities I've seen do this. And maybe it's because they're celebrities and they can do whatever they want in society, basically. Like I can't remember who it was, but she has bleach blonde hair, and then her eyebrows are bleached, and she looks like a spooky little
ghost
queen. Yes, I love that.
Are you thinking of Madonna?
No,
because Madonna did that,
and she probably looked great.
No, she looked like a freak.
And there's been a new trend of girls putting concealer on their eyebrows to see what it would look like. I haven't done it because I know I would look terrifying, but
all right. Well, we'll wait to see if you come in with your bleached eyebrows one
I'll
day.
do it. I'll send you a photo.
All right. The next one that's coming back is the ultra low rise pants, which I was also fell victim to, as far as my, like the top, you like just constantly being able to see the top of my butt. Like as soon as you bend over. This was like early aughts again, as far as these like low pants. And I was like, I feel like we just got into the high rise pants, and I just started buying high rise pants, and I was like, oh, like this, I can understand. Think these are flattering. Nope. Going back.
This is thanks to the queen, Julia Fox. She's been doing this a lot.
Yes, this is exactly who the picture is of.
She's been doing that a lot. I wouldn't do it. I don't think I would look. My torso's too like short, and I'm too like small, and like I look like a Oompa Loompa. So if I did it, I would look like a child wearing low-rise jeans. But like women that are tall, oh my god, go for it. Look great.
Jane, what do you think?
I think you both could get away with it. No problem. Brooke, trust me, out of the three of us, I am the Oompa Loompa in the group. And this would not be my look. And the other question I have is, does Julia Fox have any skills?
She's a muse. She was Ye's muse.
Other than walking around, she walks around half naked. That's all she does.
And with very black eyeliner that she does herself, which is also on this list as far as a scary beauty trend.
Give me a skill. Does she at least spell well? Can she speak in complete sentences? Give me something to admire other than the fact that she's half naked all the time.
One thing I will say is that she's become very outspoken on TikTok about her political views, and I tend to agree with everything she's saying, like about abortion and childcare. And I'm like, there is a brain up there.
Oh,
again, I disagree. There needs to be more than just her making one statement about something that gives her credibility, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Where did she come? I mean, I know she was in Uncut Gems.
That's how she started, yeah.
So she just, because she got an acting, like a role in that fairly popular movie, that kind of,
yeah.
And then she was Ye's muse for a hot second, and then she's showing up at award show with black eyeliner and the infamous chokehold dress.
Yeah, that's literally how it happened.
All right, well, there you go. All right, so the next one, I'm going to say the name, and Jane, you tell me if you can think of what these might look like.
Okay.
Knuckle boots.
Boots with bumps on the toes.
Close. Do you know what knuckle boots are?
They're like they look like those socks that you put like each toe in, sort of.
Yes. So at least the one that there's example here. So they're basically like just separating your big toe. They look like sneakers. And then there's a slit in the front of the shoe where there's your big toe and then there's your other four toes. And so they're kind of like little webbed sneakers, except it's not all five toes being separated. It's just, so it looks like a moose knuckle.
Well, aren't they missing the obvious? They're camel toe boots.
They're camel toe boots.
I mean, it's right there. Come on.
And they look hideous.
Yeah,
they're really ugly.
Yeah, very ugly.
No one should be wearing this. Okay. We're all in agreement there. The next thing, if you're not going to wear the low-rise jeans, maybe you can wear the ultra mini skirt. Those are also coming back. And some of the pictures they have here are both, there's just not a lot of fabric because they're super short and they're not like waist high. It's just,
it's like a bandana.
It's like the nudity black bar that's about that wide. And so again, I think I'm aging out of all of these trends. Especially because winter is coming.
I probably wouldn't wear it, but kudos to anyone that does, I guess. I don't know.
Just take a towel with you wherever you go. So if you want to sit down somewhere, you have something separating you from the surface.
All right. So this one just feels not so scary so much as, why would you ever spend your money on this? So it's overpriced, tacky, high fashion. And the picture that they have, it looks like a Lay's potato chip bag. But it's made by Balenciaga. And it costs $1,800.
Oh my gosh.
And it looks like a crunched up chip bag.
It legit looks like you could just take a large potato chip bag, put a zipper on it, and charge a month's rent, depending on where you live, and carry it around. And you could also just do the same thing for $3.
I would not. First of all, I don't have that amount of money, but I would not spend that amount of money on that. Just make it yourself.
I know this is, and you, I don't know why you couldn't, like, looking at this picture, this feels like, you could make this.
Yeah.
And you could make this, and you could probably even put the Balenciaga in there, pretend that it's a real one. But I've never really, my brother's given me nice bags in the past. It's something that I would never buy myself. I don't really understand is it just a status thing to have a designer bag?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily that they're always the cutest bag you've ever seen, especially this one.
No. And some of them, like the Hermes bags that are so highly sought after, they look like something Queen Elizabeth would have carried. That's not a young woman's bag. It's not a cool, hip, trendy, it looks like an old lady bag.
Yeah,
It does.
exactly.
And they're $4,800 and up.
I know. It's but to each their own what they want to spend their money on. So then this is what there's two basically in a row that kind of go with the low cut jeans, because part of having the low cut jeans was what we, back then was called a whale tail. Do you remember what a whale tail is, Jane?
No.
It's when your pants are so low that you can see the top of girls' thongs and it looks like a whale tail.
Oh, how adorable.
So that's back in style.
I love this trend.
What?
I love this trend. It reminds me of Gwen Stefani and Eve. Beautiful. I love it. When I see girls do that, like when I'm out, because I wouldn't walk around the street wearing it, but if I was like out, like at a club, maybe I would do it. But I'm like, you look so great. Your underwear is so cute.
Oh my gosh. See,
Yes.
I don't feel like this was in style before, but it was more of a externality of wearing such low-rise jeans that you just ultimately ended up seeing people's underwear. But now it looks like this is an intentional thing.
Yeah, it is. I think it's so cute.
Jane's so confused.
No, I just, again, Brooke, I think you would feel differently if you saw Julia Fox in that and me in that. I think there would be a stark difference.
But then there's also like cutouts. There's pants. There's a picture of Megan Fox wearing like almost assless chaps where it cuts. It's not even just low. It's like specifically cuts down. Like it's like to show butt cleavage. So in the same way that you have shirts that are cut low and you can see the cleavage if you are endowed enough to have cleavage. Don't know what that's like. But it's the opposite, but it's just on your butt. And so you could see the top of her butt. Brooke, is this? No. So the thongs are fine.
Yeah.
But
I
this
don't wanna
cutout
see your
thing
butt
is,
crack. Like,
but you're fine with seeing a thong.
Yes. Because I feel
I
like
don't understand the logic.
Your thong can be an accessory, but I feel like your butt crack should not be an accessory.
There are plumbers everywhere who are listening now who are really hurt. You guys, just buy thongs.
Just buy thongs.
And then
cover it up.
plumber's cracks will not be an issue.
There you go. Yeah. Can't say I'm gonna wear this one anytime soon. I don't think there's anything on this list that I would be like all in on, because then not only that, then there's pictures of Halsey. Like I just like not buttoning your pants. Like it's Thanksgiving year round.
You just unbutton it, or you unbutton it and fold it over the top if your pants are a little too baggy. I'm gonna be honest, I've done quite a few of these trends. And some of them worked, some of them didn't.
So where do you all get your ideas from?
I think what's happening. Oh, I'm so excited to talk about this. I think what's happening.
You got 3 minutes.
Is that a lot of people that were born. I was born in 2000, born around the same time. Are like, we saw a lot of like our older cousins wearing like low-rise pants and stuff like that, and now it's like having a revamp, and we're like all in it. Like people love now like 90s, early 2000s. Like Y2K, like style stuff, and that's where I'm at too. I love all of that. My mom is like, you're literally wearing what I wore when you were like 5.
And I get that fashion trends come back and
It's very cyclical.
everything's cyclical, but I feel like some of us are like, this went out of style for a reason. This is not flattering. This is not
bad then, bad now.
Yes, exactly. And so, but it's also like I feel like there's a lot of clashing of like fabrics and patterns that you all really like, and you kind of just love chaos is my big takeaway of seeing Gen Z's style of like we want to not follow any rules whatsoever.
Yeah, I have not gotten on that train yet of like people will like mix and match like so many different like fabrics, and I can't do that because my like OCD brain is like, no, like take that off right now. That doesn't look good.
All right. Well, when we come back, Lieutenant Governor Mandela Barnes will be here to talk about how that rally felt coming out of Saturday and what the plan is for the last week of the election. Stick with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
It's such an ancient pitch, but one that I'd never switch, 'cause there's no nicer witch than you.
Mom, Mama, what does the chicken say?
Chicken. Oh, okay.
When the wolf?
Oh, a wolf. Ooh!
What about the tiny dog? Cat. Owl. Dolphin? What does the turkey say? Whale.
Yeah, whale sound.
Do the giraffe.
Giraffe, really? Okay. Giraffe.
You're not going to get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff, like making sure your kids are buckled correctly in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right.
Visit NHTSA.gov/
the right seat.
Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Partly cloudy skies this afternoon with a high of 64. Northwesterly winds around 5 miles an hour. Lows dip down to about 39 tonight. Clear skies. Bright sunshine expected tomorrow. Daytime highs approaching 67. Temperatures well above average Wednesday and Thursday with highs in the upper 60s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 59 degrees.
WAUK 540 AM, Brookfield's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUK.
This here's son of a third shift auto worker and a public school teacher. Grew up in Milwaukee, one of Milwaukee's poorest neighborhoods. Worked as an organizer, served as a state legislator, now a lieutenant governor. He's fought every step of the way to make sure Wisconsinites have opportunity to get ahead just like he did. He believes in the American dream. If that's not a true-blooded Wisconsin American, I don't know what is. Come on.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. Our guest to round out today's show is the current Lieutenant Governor and Democratic candidate for U.S. Senate, Mandela Barnes. How you doing, sir?
Doing pretty good. Thank you so much for having me.
So I was there at the rally on Saturday. And what did that feel like when you got that endorsement from the former president and him listing off all of your accomplishments?
So honestly, when you just replayed that moment, like it felt different now than it did then. You know, you kind of get caught up in what's going on in real time. It's like you want to embrace this, you want to cherish this moment. Like you see all these people in the crowd, you know, old friends, and even my high school history teacher, who I pointed out in the very beginning of my speech, like to see all these people there and experience that moment. And it's like, it's hard to even take it all in. But it was honestly one of the most amazing moments of my life.
Yeah, because I would imagine, I think you've said that his presidency and his candidacy, even before he was president as a U.S. Senator from Illinois, was highly inspirational for you even choosing to get into politics, right?
Well, absolutely. That DNC speech 18 years ago is what, when I heard it, I was like, okay, this is it. This is it. I mean, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know if it was running for office. I mean, I don't think it was running for office at that point. But it's what inspired me to get involved at some level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Worked hard enough.
So so I can only imagine when I actually, so that clip came from our mutual friend, Josh Burstein, who was staying with me, and he was there filming, and he cut that together last night. And I was like, will you send that to me? Because I feel like those words and being able to really grasp what he was saying about you had to have been kind of an incredible moment as far as no matter what happens next week.
Well, honestly, I mean, to think about how much, like I said, or like you just said, I was inspired by his candidacy 18 years ago. It's like to have that same exact person who's had such an impact on me to come back and say what he said, not just say what he said, but the way he said it.
Mm-hmm.
The way he addressed the crowd, my own hometown, people I've known my entire life who were in the audience, like to get that, level of support, something that we'll never forget. Certainly top 5 life moment.
Yeah, definitely. So we got 7 days left. It looks like you're on a bus. And so what is the game plan for the next 7 days?
7 days left. We are getting all over the place, showing up, talking to people wherever they are, all across Wisconsin. This has been an incredible journey these last 15 and a half months. And it all comes down to these last 8 days. And we're popping up all over the place, having the conversations with people about the things that matter, right? We're holding Ron Johnson accountable for his 12 years of failure, his dangerous position on abortion, his failed position on our economy and creating good jobs here in Wisconsin. And we're most importantly leading with our values and our vision about making Wisconsin the absolute best place to live, but also leading with the values that made us the state that we are today, and making sure that people know that Wisconsin should be in the driver's seat of the economy, driver's seat when it comes to, what agriculture is going to look like in the next 5, 10, 20, 100 years, what the green energy economy is going to look like. Wisconsin has an absolute role to play, but it'll never happen if we have people in office representing us who are hell-bent on taking us steps backwards.
Absolutely. And so what has kind of been the most surprising thing in these 15 months that you've taken away from, because it's not your first time campaigning, you've run a statewide campaign before. And what are the biggest takeaways that you didn't expect running for this office in this kind of statewide election?
Honestly, I had a chance, when we were running 4 years ago, it was, all cylinder, it was all hands on deck. We were firing on all cylinders. Senator Baldwin was up for re-election. So I got a chance to see her during her campaign a lot and see the work that she was doing. So I won't say that there were too many surprises, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah.
You kind of knew what you were getting yourself into, and it's
pretty much
a lot of work, but not anything caught off guard.
A lot more fundraising, certainly, but that didn't surprise.
Yeah.
Like, I knew I would have to raise a lot of money to get it done. But I mean, there've been a lot of good surprises, lots of good surprises. I will say that a lot of people who stepped up, popped up out of the woodwork. People who were there for me in the primary, who I would have never expected to come out for me in the primary. The coalition that we put together, we had a big vision of what we wanted to do, but it could not have come together more perfectly than it actually did. And even now, having President Barack Obama show up, the high school gym in the heart of the city of Milwaukee, giving a ringing endorsement of this campaign. I felt like he would come support us because he typically does pop up in Wisconsin. He's there 2014, 2016, 2018. So it would have been more weird if he didn't show up. That would have been a surprise. If he did show up. But not only did he show up, it's just the way he showed up and the intensity of his speech. And that's what people have been talking about a whole lot. Like he was ready to lay it all on the line. He took the gloves off.
Absolutely. That's what we played at the top of today's show. We played a clip from when he was talking about Social Security. And I was like, you could tell he was fired up, which I think also fired people up. So, well, we only got a couple minutes left, but what stops do you have today on that Win for Wisconsin bus tour?
The Win for Wisconsin bus tour is taking us to Viroqua, it's taking us to La Crosse, Eau Claire, and I think we got one more stop also. So we're moving around.
All right. And then Election Day, you'll be in Milwaukee?
Election Day will be in Milwaukee.
All right.
I'll be there before Election Day, but we'll certainly be spending Election Day in Milwaukee, bringing it home.
Yeah, that's what's been. There's a lot to do. There's a lot of events going on this next week, and so you're going to cover a lot of ground. Are you sharing the bus with Tony, or are you guys on separate buses?
We have different buses.
Okay.
Different buses. We got to cover as much ground as possible. We have 100 stops planned in 15 days.
Woo! Getting to see a lot of. What is the most surprising place that you have seen or gotten to know in the state of Wisconsin since running for lieutenant governor that you're like, I could live here?
Viroqua.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Easily Viroqua. I don't think I heard of Viroqua before I ran for lieutenant governor 4 years ago. Or if I did hear of it, I would have had no frame of reference. But Viroqua was a place certainly there.
All right, ringing endorsement of Viroqua from Lieutenant Governor Barnes. Well, good luck with everything for the next 7 days, and we're rooting for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. All right, well, that will do it for us today. This has been As Goes Wisconsin.
Catch you in the back and scream like a banshee, make you jump.